All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll call the meeting of the special meeting of the Buckhannon City Council to order. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We'll do as we usually do when we start. We'll start with a moment of prayer or silent meditation, and then the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight. I see it's a full house, a lot of familiar faces that I see here tonight, and that's always great to see. A lot of new faces. We always appreciate that. Tonight is a different sort of meeting than what you would normally be used to seeing us here have in City Council. Normally on the first and third Thursdays, they're very structured. We have a very structured agenda, and we make some limitations on speaking and who speaks and when they speak. Tonight, being a special meeting, we've got some really important issues, obviously, that the audience has come to discuss with us as well. What I'll ask you to do is be patient with us. If you want to speak, raise your hand. I'd be more than happy to recognize you at that time. I promise you, I will see you. Everybody will get a chance to speak if they wish to do so under their particular item that they want to talk about. We would like to try to keep this before midnight tonight, so that we will ask that you limit your questions or your comments until for about 3 to 5 minutes, not anymore, if that's possible. I don't know if anybody else got a chance to look at the agenda. But tonight's meeting has a lot to do with what the council is looking forward to do for the rest of this year and for the coming fiscal year. Some of the things you're going to hear tonight doesn't necessarily mean that that is the way that we are going to proceed. What we are wanting to do is come up with all the ideas that we have pertaining to each one of these items, take from that, determine how eventually, when the council decides to make a decision on any of this, how we proceed with that. So keeping that in mind, I will go ahead and start with our agenda for our items to discuss. And the first thing we have on the agenda is a presentation and discussion of the 2015 or 16 budget department requisition. I will ask the council before we begin with that. That will be quite a lengthy discussion. I don't know if the council I would entertain any suggestions on the council would like to switch any of the agenda items on the B3.
Mayor, excuse me, I'm interrupting. Employee benefits package first. They gotta go to work tomorrow.
That would probably
Maybe.
make a lot of people in the room happy if we would discuss that now. What about the rest of the council? How do you feel about that?
I agree with Mary. Let's go ahead and do it that way.
Pam says okay. What do you think, Ron?
If that's what the majority of the people here are here for, I'd say go ahead.
I can do a hand count, but I'm pretty sure I can do it in my head to see which one that is. So with that indulgence then, and suspending of the rules for our normal items of discussion, we'll start off with the employee benefits package information. Again, this is just information because of some of the things we're going to be discussing in this coming year's budget process. We need to have a better idea of what exactly it is our employees make, what their compensation package is. Now, we're going to be very general, of course, in the public meeting. We're not going to talk about anybody's salaries in particular. We're going to talk about the overall benefit package that each employee gets for working for the city of Buckhannon. I have every reason to believe we'll hear an historical account as well as to how some of the things proceeded to this point. But if that's all right with everyone, I would let Michael Doss, as our Human Resources Officer, go ahead and begin our discussion on employee benefits and the package information.
Yeah, the reason that this is on your agenda is for several years, and even recently, council members have been asking for us to get together and talk and present to council to kind of educate council on the employee benefits package. We've heard a lot of that, so that's what I'm going to report to you on tonight. Our employee benefits package. This covers every employee, whether you're a salary employee or hourly employee, a department head, supervisor, or just a general labor or administrative staff. So I want to go over a few things first. The big thing that we always talk about is health insurance. Health insurance is offered to every employee. Currently we have 80 9 employees that are on health insurance. That is paid 100% of the premium is paid by the city of Buckhannon. That is split in 5 different ways. General fund, 1, and then the 4 public utilities, water, sewer, waste collection, and consolidated public works. Split the remainder of the health insurance with those employees respectively belong to those departments. The rates right now per individual, if we have individuals and we have 26 individuals, that just covers them on our health insurance plan. The monthly premium the city pays for an individual is $354.40. 2-person, that can be husband and wife typically. We have 21 individuals on that. The monthly premium for a 2-person plan is $1,059.20. We have another category of parent and child, which is self-explanatory. We have 3 employees on that. That is $604.25 per employee. And then we have the family plan, which is exactly what it is. We have 39 employees that are on the family plan. Each one of those employees on the family plan is $1,139.85. That is what we pay, and that is the breakdown of what we pay for health insurance for employees. As far as holidays are concerned, the city has a total of 16 holidays that they pay. 14 of those holidays are 8-hour holidays. 2 of those holidays are what we call half days or 4 hours. Those 2 holidays being Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. And that is on a non-election year. When there's an election year, the primary and the general election are also off holidays where employees are paid. Under employees' retirement contribution, the city of Buckhannon pays 14%. The employee pays 4.5%, so the city pays 14% of that employee's wages towards retirement, and the employee themselves pay 4.5%. That is set by the West Virginia Consolidated Public Retirement Board. That's not set by the city. Neither the city's contribution or the employees is set by the city. There has been discussion in the past, and I want to air this out, about opting out of the retirement system, going to an alternative plan. And I want to read something just to put that to rest. I'm reading from the Laws and Rules of the West Virginia Consolidated Public Retirement Board, Section 162-5-15, titled Employer Termination of Membership. Under 15.1, once an employer, whether a municipality, county, or public corporation, elects to participate in the retirement system, the city of Buckhannon has elected to participate in the retirement system, the actions of the municipality, county, or public corporation is final, and it may not, at a later date, elect to terminate its participation in the retirement system. We're locked in, essentially, and we're bound by those rules with those contributions. Another benefit that employees receive is term life insurance. Each employee is covered up to $10,000 for life insurance. Every employees of course can opt to have additional life insurance, which is taken out directly of their check. But the city does cover $10,000 of the employee-only's life insurance. That costs the city $4.60 a month. $4.60 a month for each employee. Vacations. Employees that have served 1 to 5 years get 12 days of vacation a year, and that is split up again and accrued with every pay period. So 1 to 5 years they get 12 days. 6 to 10 years they get 15 days. And 10 or more years they get 18 days of vacation. Again, that's accrued throughout their throughout their pay periods. As far as vacation, if an employee is terminated, resigns, quits, fired, retired, the city will pay up to 480 hours of their vacation at their hourly rate. So for any of those circumstances, if an employee has vacation up to 480 hours, he or she will get paid at that hourly rate for that. Any remaining vacation or any sick time at all, the city does not pay out, but can be used as service time if that employee is close or considering or retires. They can opt to use that. That is our benefits package. Of course, we pay Medicare and all that good stuff, which you can argue is a benefit or not. But those are the things that the city contributes And that is an overview of what the city pays as it relates to each employee, full-time employee with the city.
Are the employees allowed to carry over their vacation time from one fiscal year to the next?
Yes.
Is there a cap?
There is no cap, but they're only going to get paid 480 hours if they retire, resign, fired, or
So 12 weeks.
essentially.
So
But
ladies,
they can go, I mean, I've seen organizations that allow people to go up to 6 months of carryover. That doesn't, that can apply here, but they can't get it at the,
It's a continuous accrual
Yeah.
of their vacation. Again, they're only going to get paid up to 480, but any additional vacation that they've accrued, as I alluded to, along with sick time, can be used towards service time. Sick time also has no cap.
so they, essentially, they can, with the sick time, what's the cap on that as far as the service?
There is no cap on that with sick. It's just the only thing as far as the city's concerned. The city doesn't recognize any payout upon severance with the employee.
How is sick time accrued?
Sick time is accrued every pay period, up to 1 to 5 years. I think it's 3.7 hours, and then it goes up. Yeah.
Are they allowed to donate sick time to another person?
What's the rate of Social Security now, the employer's contribution?
7.65 and 1.49.
So it's what, 8?
6.2, I'm sorry, 6.2 and 1.45. So
Okay.
it's 7.65 for all of them.
Okay. Then is there a cap on that?
No.
That's set.
They've eliminated that.
It's just a set rate.
So you're saying that for vacation, for example, if you're here 10 years, you get 18 days after 10 years?
It's 6 to 10 is 15. Anything after 10 is 18.
18. And then some years are 16 holidays, and other years there are 18 holidays because of the election.
Depending on the election, yeah. Two of those, we'll call them standard holidays, are half days, of course. But there's 14, just full 8 hours, and two 4 hours.
is everybody getting an idea of now? We've been discussing this quite a bit now for about 4 or 5 months, and I know for years, or since the last major rate increases for the insurance, there's been discussion on how exactly the city can afford to continue with what we're already doing, considering increasing prices of everything, and what can we do to perhaps lay back on a few things to supplement for another. For instance, I know that the healthcare issue is a very important one for us all, of course. And I, unfortunately, had the opportunity to try to figure out that whole Obamacare thing. And I'll tell you what, there was nothing really affordable about that act at all that I saw. So I understand, and I particularly understand the employee's point of view from the health insurance plan, because I get to see it quite a bit, a lot from it on a day-to-day basis. Unfortunately, my fellow council members don't get to understand and see that on a regular basis, or comprehend on a lot of how a lot of the benefits interplay amongst themselves for the total package that the employees get. But we all have to admit that 100% health insurance is, it's an old dinosaur that does not, it's unheard of. I've asked many people if they've ever heard of an employer paying 100% anymore, and I have only gotten one answer, unless anybody else knows of one. I understand as well, though, to maintain that rate at 100% that we've been doing for so long, that the employees have had to give up a few things as well. And the main thing that I've seen is the deduction that you end up having to pay, not having to pay for the insurance. I'm not going to go into specific numbers, but it's not unlike Obamacare's very small bronze package. You end up paying, well, I'll just say on an average $10,000 before you even get to the health insurance part of it. And if you have kids, you're not going to end up, that would be for a catastrophic type of or a lingering health issue. But we've got to figure out what the middle is. Now, I will tell you this, council, as well, that at our last department head meeting, I went ahead and asked each one of our department supervisors to organize themselves 2 employees from each department, 1 or 2, depending upon how many people wanted to do it, so that we can have and begin a dialogue with the employees on the health insurance package and, of course, any of the other employee benefits package that we have. Primarily the health insurance program we use. Now, keep in mind that it's kind of late in the game for us to really, this year, try to change anything because our rate renewal, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Doss, correct me, is in April. We have a budget in June or July 1 that we have to start, so trying to figure out, unless it is some sort of a 20% or more increase in health insurance rates, we do not seeing changing or what we would consider just roll over this year's, and ask the committee at this point to take a look at all of the different options that there are in health insurance, not just the ones that we give the department heads, but all of them. And if you know of some, let us know. Your committees will then be able to form together, and I assure you they will be meeting, and it will be productive meetings. It won't be just trying to get together to argue all night. There will be some production that comes out of these meetings. But I want the council to understand, and I want the employees all on the same page, understanding what the benefits compensation package is, and particularly how can we help the employees and maintain our credibility within the city and, of course, within our financial books. Does that make sense to everybody? You know, I'm not trying to mess with words here. That's just the way it is at this point. And if the city doesn't want to look at, we've discussed this before. How much a month are we paying in health insurance benefits total?
What's your annual? What is that
It's-
annual?
The monthly is $77,724.50.
$77,724.50 a annual.
900 and some thousand?
It's
Yeah,
pretty
something
high
like that.
up there. Now, we can look at ways, and we will explore this within these committees on, do you lower the deductible, do you pay a certain percentage of the health insurance, yada, yada, how does all that work? And I guarantee you it's going to be a lengthy discussion on that. But I just wanted to lay that out there for council. We've got that process in the works so that the employees are going to get heard. They're going to be able to discuss what they want to discuss with us. But I wanted you to get a heads up in a beginning place to see where our benefits package are in this system that we have. Anytime you have any questions, of course, if you need to know more information, you can see Michael Doss or Amby is just as proficient in a lot of the HR and all of that as well. So I will open up the floor to discussion from the council first, and then I will go to the audience next. Anybody on council got any questions or comments?
I have a few comments.
All right, Dave, go ahead, sir.
I think when you look at something like this, you have to look at it in the context of where the city is relative to the competitive environment that we're facing as far as going after a pool of individuals that have an interest in working, you know, for their lifetime, their career, what have you. And it's really, I've suggested for a number of years that I don't think most employees are totally aware of the investment. It's a two-way street. They're working for us and they're putting their best foot forward, and we're providing an extremely attractive compensation package where I don't believe many employees have a grasp of what the total cost is for a commitment for a full-time person. And what they generally look at is their take-home pay. So occasionally I think it would be helpful for the city when they provide the increases in their hourly rate or their annual salary to put together a 8.5 by 11 page, just one page, and show what the total investment is that the city is putting forth in regard to their total compensation package. And I think it would be shocking to them to see, you know, you're putting your holidays and your vacation time and so forth as a dollar cost as far as the investment. I've been on several boards in the past for public institutions, and occasionally I'm shocked when there's not a pension plan for that particular governmental agency. I don't quite understand that. They haven't put it in their budget. But 14% is a tremendous amount. You know, I can't think of any other employer in the area. Maybe, I don't know what the county is now, I don't know what the school board is. But if you look at the private sector, generally 6% is considered fairly significant. And as you said, Mayor, the 100% premium for both family and individual is a dinosaur. I don't think there's any employer in the area that does that. The last thing we want to do as a council is to scare the employees saying, oh my gosh, they're going to, you know, we can't do anything with a pension plan. That's pretty apparent. And we can do something with the health insurance, but at the same time, there are programs out there or organizations where they say, okay, if you're making $60,000 or $70,000 and you have a family plan, you can pay more on a monthly basis than somebody making $25,000. So I think this is a very complicated subject. It's great that you have 2 employees per department that are going to be recommended by the supervisors, but I think at some point in time the city needs to give serious consideration to having every employee have a meeting, sort of a general assembly, and say, here's what the city is facing, the challenges over the next X amount of years, and that we have to do this in a very thoughtful way that provides financial integrity and credibility to the city, and also allows us to compensate our employees adequately, fairly, relative to our competitive environment. And I've been concerned several times in the last couple council meetings. We've had some of us say that our employees are underpaid. Well, underpaid relative to what? I think we have to be very careful about what we're saying in respect to this whole area, because it's very, very critical. Sorry, thank you for the time.
No, thank you, Dave, very well said. Mr. Pugh, you got anything?
I have a question that maybe Mr. Doss or might even get Mr. McCauley here on this question. Can an employee, if they find insurance comparable and above the benefits that we are currently giving them at a premium that is right along with what we're paying, is it possible for us to give that employee or pay his insurance that he wants from that particular company, or for us to reimburse him for his insurance he would pay for the better policy?
I'm honestly, I can't 100% answer that. I know one of the things, and this may be getting into that, I know one of the things that we've talked about with our insurance agent in the last week and a half, there was a discussion about possibly those employees that have spouses who have insurance, allowing those employees to get on their spouse's coverage and possibly giving them some type of compensatory relief for getting off of our insurance effectively and getting on their spouses where they're still covered, giving them some monetary maybe every quarter, which quite honestly would save the city, if they're on a family plan, $10,000, $11,000 or more a year, depending on what you pay them out in compensation. We were advised by our insurance agent through our insurance company that if we were to do something like that and they found out about it, they would drop us entirely.
Your risk pool is changed at that point in time also.
So we're checking. Honestly, Ron, I don't have that answer. I wish I could give that to you, but new healthcare law may have changed some of that too. I really don't know. It's something certainly we can take back and explore. But
I'd like to have it explored sometime and get some answers from our insurance representatives.
I think there's also an issue that is presented of a taxation nature, an income taxation nature, that if you have money being paid in lieu of a benefit, that probably would have to be included in that person's income tax stuff. I think Mr. Doss, we could probably make a couple of calls to the state auditor's office and state tax department.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
It's pretty complicated.
No, it's not easy. Nothing's easy.
Anything else from council? I'll ask anybody from the audience if they'd like to speak or forever hold your peace on the issue of employee compensation or insurance. I want to let you know, and I know there's a lot of employees here tonight, we're looking at this. We're looking at it not in the ways that we have previously. We're looking outside the box. We're pulling the committee together. We're going to let every employee know what your options are and what all of the options are. The city can only do so much, though, as you're aware. A health issue and health concern is an issue throughout this whole nation. It's not just with our employees. We so appreciate what our employees do for our city on a daily basis and throughout the years that I just want to reassure you that we are looking at the best possible ways with your guidance on how we are going to try to improve or decide the next issue. It will not be this year unless there is a 20% plus more increase in the health insurance, which we do not foresee at this point at all. It would be a very minor one that we are saying that we do not foresee changing anything at this point. We do want to take a year though, explore all the options, and by the time, this time next year, I want the employees to tell us what employee plan they want to go with or which plan or insurance plan they want to go with. Does that make sense? Does that sound fair? Does that seem like something that we should do? And I'm open that again up to the audience. Here's your chance. Is that something we should do, not do? Should we just continue the little things as we have been? Anything that you want to add to that, Tim? Go ahead, sir.
I would just like to add that with the city's pool of employees, if you look at the jobs that the employees do in-house as opposed to hiring contractors to do work and paying prevailing wage, I think you would see that you're getting great benefit for your dollar. And I can't speak for every department. I mean, I know that the street department does their own sidewalks, and if you pay somebody to do sidewalks, but I will speak for the sanitary. For instance, we just finished the Brook Street pump station project. We did that total project in-house, and we probably spent $300,000. If you contract that out, you're probably looking at $750,000 to $1 million. So if you cut into your workforce and your valued employees start looking for other jobs, I think that you may spend more in the long run. I think that's something council should consider and think about. That's all I want to say.
You make a really good point, and something I meant to mention is the work that's done within house that our employees do, our own employees, we don't have to contract out for. That's an excellent point, and that is obviously something Michael Doss keeps numbers on as well through his accounting, and we'll be able to bring that up when we discuss total issues on that. Thank you, Tim, for bringing that up. You're absolutely right.
You have to remember when you contract out, you're paying prevailing wage. So you're paying
Let's hope
double.
that changes soon. I hear there's a question on that.
Mayor, Michael, thank you for educating myself, and I'm sure Robin feels the same way, hearing all these things as new council. And I know that the city employees know me well enough to know that we're a unique city, okay? Because we do things on our own. We might have firemen that turn into carpenters. We might have a police officer who does the same. But when it comes to the specialty fields in the water department, street department, sewer department, everybody's jack of all trades. And yeah, we're saving money that way. And I'm hoping we're keeping pretty good records of when we do something outside of what that person is, so we could document that down the road.
Very good, Mary. Thank you. Anybody else? Jerry?
Just a couple things, Mayor. Dave had mentioned the 14% on retirement. And I came to work here at 23 years old. I had other options available to me, but I came here because I was looking for that long-term retirement. I started out on the back of a garbage truck, and good living. I make decent money now, but I've worked for the city 21 years. The thing about retirement is it's the same as our insurance. You know, no one here is discounting our insurance coverage. But the thing is, we want to have coverage. The city's paying $900,000 a year for coverage. Right now, the only one benefiting from it is the insurance company. The same with the retirement. I can name you several people that have retired from the city of Buckhannon and didn't live more than a year. They don't get the portion the city pays in. Their spouses, or in most cases, in the 2 cases I can remember out of waste collection, their beneficiary got exactly what was left of what they paid into their retirement, their portion of retirement. So again, that's something unless, and you know, I honestly hope I can retire from the city of Buckhannon and draw that, absolutely. But unless you do retire, and you live some years after you retire, that benefit's really not a benefit directly to the employee at that time. Say that now. The other thing I wanted to bring up was kind of add to what Tim was saying about your employees. Camden Avenue, we bought a paver and we started doing our own paving. Camden Avenue, that project, we saved $77,000 after purchasing the pavement. We could hold the paver to Jerry Stouts for junk after the job was done. One job. I came into the city, and at the time there was 3 supervisors in waste collection. There's 1 supervisor and 1 street commissioner, and I'm not the only one that's assumed those types of positions and assumed those roles. So it's just a matter, there's not an employee here that doesn't understand what council's going through, because we go through it every day in our own finances. We know exactly what it's about. The only thing we're here for is to make sure, and I think that opening the dialogue up and absolutely having these representatives is going to be a great help. We're not against fair, but you know, if you're going to pay for something, we feel we should get what we feel is a value for it. And also, we have folks that are still on the back of those trucks and are still out there plowing the streets and doing things that their hourly rate or wage won't support contributions to insurance. They're going to have to not pay something else if they do so. So I hope that you just consider that whenever you're making your decision. That's all I've got there. Thank you.
Well said, Jerry. Thank you very much.
Can I respond to that a little
Dave, go
bit?
ahead, sir.
And I think that's one of the issues that is so complicated, Jerry, is that, you know, with a state retirement plan, there would be some organizations out there that would say that that's an antiquated plan, that, you know, it's like Social Security. If you die 7 or 8 months after you retire on Social Security, all the money that you put into the system basically is gone. And that's something that I think hopefully at some point in time the state will recognize that they have a fairly antiquated system also. And of course that's going to take a long time. I won't be alive when it happens. But this is a very complicated issue, and I again want to stress, we're not here to send a fear of, hey man, I've been here for 25 or 30 years and the city's going to do this or do that. We want to be fair, and we want to recognize that it's an investment for us to have a good compensation plan. But we have to recognize the challenges that we have financially in the future.
Thank you, Dave. Go ahead, Mark.
Why, the only insurance company I've ever known that gives you back anything if you don't use it was Aflac. And I took a policy out, God, I know, it's about 120 years ago, I guess, something like that. But 20 years later, I got a check from Aflac for $10,000 because I had not utilized that insurance in that 20 years' time. I don't believe that there's an insurance out there today that would dare do something like that.
There's a bunch of them out there, Ron.
Are there?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Well, I'd say that very few, because they can't afford it. If you don't have in 20 years, can you think of anybody in here in 20 years that has not had a claim on with a family plan insurance or anything? It's hard to say 20 years you won't have one for a single plan.
It depends on the, I mean, this shouldn't be a seminar on all the different options that are out there, but there are plans out there, depending on what you pay for insurance, life insurance, and what kind of waivers you have or no waivers, that it's pretty amazing, and they're still out there.
I guess what I was trying to say is that it's almost an impossibility, Jerry, that anybody would get anything back from any insurance company for not using it or something like that.
Well, I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take every opportunity to explore all of the different, list all the different options that there are. Who knows? There may be some out there, we just don't know about it. But we're not gonna go with some fly-by-night company either. Nick, you got something, sir?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Aflac. Well, right now with some of the things going on in my family's healthcare, Aflac is actually paying better than the Blue Cross Blue Shield policy. And what he said about the only thing that's, the only person being benefited is the insurance company is absolutely correct. And with, the things that they're saying out of the sides of their mouth about how even though you're on a different tier, the same, you're still provided the same quality of care. And what they cover and what they actually pay for, at least in my family's case, is a blatant lie. I have the statement of benefits of items that were covered years ago when we were on a better tier, not being covered now. And even if Blue Cross Blue Shield dropped us, I don't think that would be a loss to me. Because the only thing that the Blue Cross Blue Shield policy and the changes over the years have done to me is send me closely to financial ruin. I've been working 2 jobs for over a year now for the pure prospect of trying to make up the difference in the lack of insurance coverage. I mean, not that I don't appreciate the city paying 100% of insurance. When I first came here in '07, that was one of the draws for me to come here. After I left the military, was competitive pay and good benefits. And if you want to keep quality employees, you have to give them a reason to want to stay. Because with me, with almost 8 years working here, all I'm doing is working myself to death. I have no family time to try to support my family when they can't get the health care that they need under what we have now.
Okay.
You're saying the coverage is not good, is what you're saying.
The coverage isn't working. They're saying things are not medically necessary, which is completely outrageous. And then the deductible compared to what my net take-home pay is on the year is 16 to 20% of my net pay with overtime. And I'm likely to be in one of the departments that gets plenty of overtime. I have grants to give me overtime. What other employees in the city get straight time with no overtime on their check? How bad are they suffering?
Well said, Nick. Good points. And again, we're going to have to take all of those things into consideration as we move forward there. And that's why I'm happy to have employees on board, because there's a lot of things we're not thinking of. I, as the mayor on a day-to-day in this form of government with the strong mayor as the CEO, get to see a lot of the issues that we're talking about. But I want to make sure that everyone understands, as well as I do, particularly on council, the different nuances that are involved in this whole employee compensation package and, of course, our health and care insurance, which we're going to have to address. And that's one of the reasons why I want to make sure we have this meeting and open meetings in the future so that we can discuss this. Anybody else in the audience? We'll start this way and go around that way. How about you, Mitch? Chief?
I want to address something that happened with our benefit package, excuse me, a year ago or so.
All right.
35 years ago, I got in a retirement system. We've heard from the guys that have been here 6 years, 7 years. 35 years ago, I got in a retirement system with the promise of a decent retirement. I had my insurance, and most importantly, some type of contribution towards my insurance when I retired. 2 or 3 years ago, we took a hit, and I think we kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater at that time. I'm not so sure that we couldn't take a long, hard look and revisit that, and I'll tell you why. We have an aging workforce. Our retirement system at age 55 with 25 years of service, we can retire, and that's a fantastic thing. Especially if you're a firefighter that's been doing this for 40 years and your back's shot and your knees hurt and your mind's going. Emotional. I still remember where I had my age. emotionally we're beat up. Our insurance used to be a pretty good recruitment tool, especially for retirees when retired. You take a kid now that we hire that's 25 years of age or 20 years of age, because a guy that's 55 years old on the fire ground is kind of really not the guy that we want to accomplish certain tasks. A kid goes to work here 20 years of age. By the time he gets to be 55, he's got 35 years working for the fire department. That's an eternity. That is an eternity. So now at 55 years of age, me, this guy, is thinking, I want to retire. But some time ago, our insurance went out, and again, the baby went out with the bathwater. So what does a 55-year-old beat-up firefighter do who's back shot, knee shot, and his mind goes like a slideshow? Do you toughen it? Here's what you end up with. You end up with, I don't think you want us sticking around until we're 65 years of age. We're going to become a burden to yourself, to ourselves. We're not safe to work with at that age. And I'm talking about you guys too. They're beating yourself up every day on a garbage truck. The guy that's climbed up and down on a garbage truck, if he went to work here at 20, I guarantee by the time he's 55 years old, he's wanting off the back of the garbage truck. I'd like for you to consider, let me back up. I understand the whole OPEB, the post-employment benefit package. I understand that. I understand that Michael says we have 90 employees. You can't give us everything we want in the world, because at some time along down the line, you're going to have to hire 90 employees to replace us. Then you're going to have 180 employees, and then that number goes 90 more. And I understand the snowball effect. But what I do also understand is, at 55 years of age, if you consider implementing paying back a portion of our retirees' insurance, I know it's not feasible to pay the whole family coverage. A single employee insurance is $350 a month. Correct, Michael? $359. That's with our current insurance. The problem is we have now, everybody looks at, when you guys retire, you go off on PEI insurance. We do, but we don't have to. That's a bad option. Everybody, PEI doesn't allow us any flexibility to say, hey, we'll pay $100 for that guy's insurance. We'll pay it all, we'll pay half of it. PEIA doesn't allow you, the people paying the bills, that luxury. We are not bound by law or any act to go on PEIA when we retire. Upon retirement, if we so chose to do so, we could stay on the current insurance policy that we have now, which is our Blue Cross Blue Shield premium. I think you should really consider going back to the way it was. Let's forget about PEIA. That's a whole, let's not talk about that. Let's think about making a contribution to the employee's insurance when he retired. Whether it's half of it, $100, all, whatever that number may be. The first thing that's going to do, that's going to allow the guys who are taking a beating, who start to work here at a very young age for an attractive benefit package, it's going to allow guys like me to retire at 55 years of age. Now, right, you've got to pay our insurance when we retire, I understand that. But the savings that I would think that when a long-term employee, a guy that's been here 35 or 40 years retires, you're going to hire a new employee. You're not going to start him out that veteran's making it that pay. You could save enough in cost savings at 55 years of age if you let a guy go and contribute to his insurance. You can, if you pay $200 a month, that's $2,400 a year. You will save more than that in what you pay for the retirement and what you pay in wages for a new hire. Plus, it would help us retain some employees, and it would give the guys an incentive to get out of here while they're healthy. Unhealthy employees only hurt your insurance. The longer we're here, the older you get, the more claims you go, your insurance goes. I really think you need to back up and take a look at some alternative way of contributing to our insurance upon retirement. It would be a good recruitment tool. Right now, that's changed. When I look at a young man who wants to come to work for the Buckhannon Fire Department, and I'm just using guys, I'm not criticizing what you do. I don't want to put words, I'm speaking for me. When I have to talk to a guy about coming to work for the Buckhannon Fire Department, he's 20 years of age, I say, buddy, when can I retire? Well, you get your Medicare when you're 65. You know, that's not very attractive, and that's become part of our problem. Our benefit package sounds good, and it is, but let's not be lured by, let's not forget about the wages aren't, we work here for a benefit package, and the wages aren't all that great. And now that's handicapping us in hiring employees too. A young kid with strong back and strong mind isn't going to go to work for the Buckhannon Fire Department. He's going to be down Dodgers County somewhere making $30 an hour pushing tools on a drilling rig. So I think it's time, I would like for you folks to take a deep breath and listen to what I'm trying to say to you about helping your long-term employees. Maybe this is some sort of severance package, maybe it is. Contribute again to the retirees' insurance. Make that attractive so guys will want to come to work here, and the employees are here now will want to stick around for a few more years. You're going to save money in the long run by letting an employee's 55 go so he can have his insurance. You don't want some of us sticking around at 65 years of age trying to do what you want now. These guys right here are both young men. JB's in his 40s. Joe, well, you are young compared to me. Joe, he's 29. I've taken both these guys to the hospital for work-related injuries. You know, their knees are beat. You know, they got knees twisted, backs sprung. Same thing with the guys on the garbage truck, and the guys who work in the water department. A lot of what we do is physically demanding. So I'd like for you to take a look at that. Let's think about staying with our current insurance. Let's not think about our retirees going off on PEI. You can contribute to our insurance through our current provider. If that current provider changes 3 years down the road, you still continue to do the same with that current provider. I'm not saying that you pay an absorbent amount of money for a whole family care package, but at least give an employee the option to walk away. I've looked at Obamacare insurance, and the only thing that Obama insurance has encouraged me to do 2 things. Stay at home and be lazy, cheat on my taxes, or get a divorce. And I'm telling you, one of those is not an option, okay? I looked at Obama insurance, and I thought, I'll go look at the Obamacare when I retire now, and I'll draw my insurance, and I'll work part-time. Well, when I said work part-time, the more money I make, if I make $500 a month to pay the insurance premium, my insurance premium goes up. What's the incentive for me to do that? Right now, you've got some old employees, you have an aging workforce with some of us, not all you guys, but with some of us, and you'd be doing yourself a favor if we had the ability to get back a contribution on insurance and get the heck out of your system and get some younger, healthier people working here. You'll save money by starting your new employees out at a lesser pay with wider insurance. We'll recoup that. I'd just like for you to reconsider that for all of us.
Thank you, Mitch.
Thank you, Mitch, well said. And I will add to Mitch, I'll echo him a little bit. One of the reasons why we are discussing this, not only as we look at health insurance and all, but we gotta look at compensation in our next budget. So this gives you another idea of how much, when we start talking specifics on salaries and all of that, you have an idea of how much out of pocket is coming straight out of that check. These fellows, or our folks aren't seeing, and we gotta keep that in mind as well. Thank you, Mitch, for that. Joey, did you have anything to say, sir?
Yes, I did, kind of piggybacking on what Mitch said. I want you guys to keep in mind when you're making your decisions that the employees that you're making decisions about are blue-collar workers.
Right.
Many of us have occupations which cause illness and injury, not necessarily at the time that we're performing our duties, but later on in life, or even while we're still working for you. I just had the privilege to talk to my primary care physician the other day about some of the illnesses that could affect me in the future. I'm probably the only 29-year-old that's been checked for cancer because of because of the place I work or the job that I do. And I want you guys to understand that that money would have came out of my insurance. That would not have been covered under workers' comp. So the more you take away from us in benefits, the more you decrease our coverage, that's more out of my paycheck to pay for something that may have been caused by my job. I've had 3 injuries that have been related to my job functions, but have not been while I was on the clock, that I've had to pay for out of my pocket. And as you take away from that, that's money that's coming out of my salary. And I totally understand the position you guys were in. I really appreciate Councilman Thomas's remarks about letting employees know what they get. Whenever I was first hired, I was under the presumption, as many were, that we would have insurance coverage whenever we retired. Little did I know at that time that it had already been done away with, only to find that out 2 years later, whenever some of our guys were getting closer to retiring. I kind of feel like I was lied to. Even though it wasn't you all that said it, that was the word going around the city. There was nothing ever presented to me, this is your wage, these are your other benefits, this is the hours of vacation you earn weekly or paid every paycheck, this is the sick leave you'll get. I think that is very worthy of a look. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Joey, very well. JV, you too, sir?
Going back to what Michael was talking about a while ago, I've always been a big advocate for opt-out options. Okay, my wife works for the federal government. I can go on her plan for around $300 a month. It's twice the plan we had. So right now the city's paying $1,100 for my free plan, My free plans cost me $3,100 out of pocket in December and January because my infant son had to get drains put in his ears. So it's not actually a free plan when you get down to it. And you know, when you get to compensating an employee for an opt-out plan, when you talk about the taxation part of it, correct me if I'm wrong, but in 2016, don't we have to pay taxes on our benefits of insurance coming up one of these years anyhow? It's a benefit given to you by the city.
Well, I think as long as you're covered by the employer, I don't think
You don't have to pay that.
But they're talking about a Cadillac plan too, that may.
But just for an example, I'm gonna speak for 2 employees at the city, or at the fire department that could opt out, that you're paying $1,100 a month, that could go somewhere else for $300 a month. So $800 a month you could save on me, you could put on him, so he could retire. Would you want a 62-year-old guy going through a house fire with you? You're the only one that has felt was to be a firefighter. It is an old man's game.
it wasn't a 35-year-old when I was.
I'm 45 years old. I've had a broken back, a broken foot, a broken leg. My workers' comp rap sheet for 25 years is this much. This is what I put into the city. You know, and you can say what you want. When you fight fire, it's just like a police officer. Every time he goes to a bank robbery, that's our structure fire. When we pull a hose, it's like them pulling their gun. So, you know, something's going to happen. People get hurt, you know, and, you know, some of that, you know, later on in life, I got arthritis in my back. I'd like to retire at 55. And hopefully, if my wife is still living and still with the federal government, I will. Because I'll, one way or another, be on her plan when I retire. But you got to look at the people that are putting the effort into your business here. You know, for Christ's sakes, I couldn't imagine climbing up and down on a garbage truck in this weather. You know, it's got to hurt. You know, and when you get to be 55, 60 years old, you know, you don't want to be doing it. So, you know, I thank you for your time. Hopefully, we can come up with some options later on. And thank you.
Anybody else? I saw some hands going this way, sir.
First of all, I would like to thank council for the opportunity to speak to you on behalf of all the city employees on the subject of employee health care insurance and the impact exposed to all city employees. I understand that this is a two-way argument. As a previous owner of a small business, I too had to make a tough call to cutting costs that directly affected my employees. As I grew in experience and knowledge, I also began to understand the importance of taking care of good employees and making sure that their needs are met. I emphasize with both parties situation we are currently facing, and I realize that we must improvise to meet the best needs for both the city and its employees. Of all, you must put the needs of the city first, and I understand that. We too struggle with taking care of essentials for our families, and health care is the foremost of that essential. I would like to do a short demonstration at this time, but before I begin, let me state the following. I recognize the fact that some city employees' income is more or less than mine. I also aware that their monthly financial commitments may vary from my own. I would like to show council just how strict a city employee paycheck is from month to month, and taking out any more out of my paycheck would be unbearable. Before you, I hold 2 copies of my paycheck. This equals 1 month of my wages for my service to the city of Buckhannon. The following information comes from an average of 2 employees of the city's Buckhannon Street Department. This is the most accurate information that could have been obtained at the time. Rent and mortgage. Buckhannon's average median based on U.S. Census Community Survey of Buckhannon, West Virginia in 2013, $488 a month. I don't know paycheck. So I may cut that, please. Property taxes. Average 2 cars per family, fire fee, house tax, etc. $93.35 a month. Groceries. $537.50 a month. But I only have $215.65 left on this check, so I'll have to go to week 3 to pay for my groceries. So let's get my groceries out of the way. One Power Electric, average monthly bill, $140.25 on my patient, 1 month. Get that out of the way. Mountaineer Gas, $47.44 a month. Get that out of the way. Water and sewer, I understand this may be going up, $71.11 a month. Car insurance, 2 cars per average per family, $151.02. Here's what I left 1 month pay. I now have $65.33 left, but my bills continue. Cable and phone internet, $164.37 a month. Cell phone, 2 cell phones per family on average, $117.70 a month. Gasoline for 2 vehicles, to and from work, average $150 a month. For a net income, for me, well, my income, that's the field that I work, minus $366.74. Now, I want you to understand, this data does not include personal or financial entertainment for family entertainment, like taking your wife to dinner, taking your family to the movies, driving to watch your children at a sporting event, going on vacation, and not to mention putting money away for your child's college tuition or simply saving for a comfortable retirement. These figures also do not include out-of-pocket expenses if we are forced to provide insurance for our spouses. For example, according to healthcare.gov, an insurance plan for my wife, with comparable to the city employee plan that we are now currently offered, would be a $1,500 deductible with a $443 monthly premium. The council should view the employees of the city of Buckhannon as its most valuable asset. The employees sacrifice their days and nights and even some risk their lives to serve the city of Buckhannon, asking only for the essential needs to be met in return. If the council decides to burden employees with the cost of insurance, then for most of us to survive on this income will be virtually impossible. You've heard the facts. Bills and other necessities of life eat away at our paychecks. You can't expect us to take more of our paycheck to pay for health care. It just won't work. It's not there. The biggest draw for the city employment, this has been touched on already, is undoubtedly this benefit package, and I would agree. That's why I came here. Why? Because according to the Social Security Administration, the national average for the hourly rate is $21.58 an hour. Our pay is far lower than that national average. The supervisors are already struggling with finding quality employees. Wouldn't it be the best interest of this council to keep good employees in the city of Buckhannon as opposed to cutting benefits and driving those employees out? If the employee benefit package is effective, the employees will be at a crossroad. We will have to decide to stay in ever further in debt, or will we seek employment elsewhere to make our family's basic needs met. We can only give so much until we break. Losing our benefits is that breaking point. So, you council members will have to decide in which way to travel in this matter. Your decision will ultimately send a message to your city employees. Is that message going to be, we understand how tough it is out there to make ends meet? We only want the very best for you and your family. And we're going to do everything in our power to assure that your health care costs stay as low as possible. Or will it be, I'm sorry, employee number 57, we had to cut costs and we didn't see you standing in the way. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir, for that. And, thank you for the demonstration. Well presented. I think you make a very valid point, and I think we all understand it. I cut like a paycheck like that every month as well. Yeah, me too. And I never get the other check. Anything else? Councilman, anything to say on that? Thank you very much for that. We appreciate your time and you bringing that to us. Mark. Where? Mark.
I just have one thing to say. You were discussing spousal insurance plans. Willie Parker sat here 2 years ago and presented the city with a Cadillac plan, ended up being an Edsel. My wife has the insurance, it still screwed the employees over. That's one thing I don't want to see happen with the employees that sit here. No matter what department you work for, if it wasn't for the employees, the city of Buckhannon wouldn't have the infrastructure, they wouldn't have what they have today.
You're right.
I've seen the water department working on water leaks at below 0 temperatures. I've seen the fire department even stand their coats up outside because it's so cold out there. We've been on car wrecks. for the last 2 years, I've been going through my cancer stuff. We've got good insurance, I think we do, because it's paid a lot on my cancer surgery and all my cancer medicines and stuff that I'm having to use. My wife's plan stinks. But I am on her plan, which helps me not to have to pay as much deductible. But I don't want the council to get a plan that would hurt the employees. I mean, because, you know, the employees do go out here, they work all hours of the night, and it's not just police department or fire department, it's every department. And, you know, and I understand, I've been here almost 20 years. Insurance has come up every single budget year. And I know it's tough, but you've got to take care of it. And at one time, you know, all departments were like a family here. Through the years, that family structure disappeared with the city employees. We weren't treated with respect from the administration. And through the years, you know, the morale of the city employees has went down because we haven't got the support that we feel that you all should be giving us, council. And, you know, you should be giving us. We get complaints that people have, you know, said, well, so-and-so with council has come to a meeting and said, and I'm going to use our department. We were classified as a cesspool of the city. Was told by an administration official. You know, it's time the employees hear some praise from the administration, not complaints.
You're right. Praise me.
Well, that's why, Mark, that's why we're having these meetings like this evening, to get this out in the open and have an opportunity for discussion.
I've been telling the employees for months, since I came in as a recorder, that we were going to open up the doors and we were going to let people understand and know, even as a recorder, and I didn't even have the authority to do it then, but I had access to the paperwork. But I think it's time, and I want to see this, and when I first moved here, there was a family spirit within the departments, and I want to see that get back to the way it was. It not only benefits the citizens, but it benefits the community as a whole. And it puts a, and as Kenny always said, we're not the city without the city employees. And that man drilled that into my head. He didn't have to, but he did. And he's 100% correct. So thank you for that, Mark. We appreciate it. We're on an hour on this conversation, and as I promised, we will let everybody speak if everybody would like to speak. So please, at this point on, as far as the employee compensation or insurance package, I would ask now that we continue on, and if anybody else has anything to say. Okay, Dennis?
Thank you, Mayor. I've noticed a couple of things from this conversation. Mr. Thomas is correct about putting out an informational packet to the employees. But as far as your insurance is concerned, you need to keep the same amount of insurance for a lesser cost. That might mean changing insurance companies.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hearing here.
You're right. And that's what I hear as well, Dennis. And that's one of the main things we are going to do. Very observant are you. I saw a hand go up over here. Was it? Yeah. Well, did anybody else have anything to say on the end? Yes, sir. I thought I saw a hand go up.
My name's Kenny. I've been here 20 years. And ever since I've been here, I've worked for public, for different people in the city or county. Do side jobs. I always did side jobs, plus worked for the city. I've done this since day one, since I've been here. I've noticed here lately our insurance is getting worse and worse. It's not paying anything. You know, this year I ain't even going to go to the doctor. I've been to the doctor twice. I can't go. I can't afford to go. And you know, I did the Rotary. I paid for one of them. I'm just glad the city paid for one of them for us. You know, they helped out a lot there too, getting that blood results and everything. I got high blood pressure. You know, I got to keep track of this stuff. And I just noticed it's been, you know, our insurance has not been, it's been going downhill.
You're right.
You know, I don't mind paying for something if we get some good insurance.
Gotcha. Well said, Kenny. Thank you, sir. You're absolutely right about that. Dennis?
Thank you, Mayor. As far as compliments go, I would like to give a compliment right now. Officer Kaner, we had a problem at our house 6, 7 months ago. Daughter or niece came up missing, And Officer Keener handled it when the girl was found and brought home. He handled it professionally. And he was there above and beyond a call of duty, handling the situation with this girl. And I can't say enough good about it. And that's my compliment.
Thank you for the compliment. I'm sure Nick appreciates it, as do we. Mr. Keener gets to deal with a lot of juvenile issues, and he does a fantastic job in that arena. And I commend him as well for the work he does in the whole department. Was there anybody else? Did you say anything? Okay. Well, thank you everyone for being here, particularly our employees, if you're here for that. I hope this enlightens you a little bit on the process that we're looking at. I hope that it assures you that we are going to do whatever we can, as Mark had said, to take care of our employees and to make sure that you guys are taken care of, your family's taken care of, to the best ability that we can do that. And with your input, we'll be able to do that. So thank you very much. You don't have to stay if you want to go home, but we've got some more things we can discuss. So what I would ask the council would be on the next issue that you would want to discuss. Do you want to go with B1, B2, B4? So I would suggest that we go with B4, discussion of the comprehensive exemptions and B&O tax. We'll let
Take 2 minutes to stand up.
take a couple minutes to stand up. I lost control.
You lost control at the beginning.
Jerry, how'd you like my sign? Wear a t-shirt.
All right, I'll call us back to order here. We have. We can stand and talk in a second. Discussion of the comprehensive B&O taxes, or comprehensive / exemption for B&O taxes. Again, we're not seeing about making any decisions here tonight on this case. We're looking at the discussion of a comprehensive plan or a not comprehensive plan that we have now. Exemptions or no exemptions. I will let Michael Doss lead us off in the discussion on this with some facts, and then we can discuss with the council and with the audience any issues relating to it. Mr. Doss?
This discussion is just only brought about because there's been several council members in the past that have expressed the desire for the city to explore looking at what would be considered, for lack of a better word, a comprehensive B&O. Just remind council that according to West Virginia Code, municipalities do have the ability to enact what would be a business and occupation tax, which is a tax essentially on the growth of a business, depending on what that business is. There's different classifications. The reason we throw around a comprehensive versus a non-comprehensive B&O is simply because the city does not exercise its ability that it has through West Virginia Code to tax essentially businesses as they're categorized within the code. Those businesses that the city currently does not tax, they do not tax amusements, they do not tax rents, and they do not tax something called professional services. I think amusements and rents speak for themselves. Professional services would be anything from doctors to lawyers to beauticians to morticians, accountants, etc. Anyone doing professional services we currently do not tax. As far as the exemption side, those categories that we do have a B&O tax on have certain exemptions. The one I think everybody is most familiar with is the retail sales and manufacturing exemption. That is an annual exemption of $1 million. The first $1 million of any business's gross, although that business is required to report annually their tax gross. If they fall under $1 million, they simply do not pay a B&O tax. Other categories have different exemptions. For instance, our contractors B&O has an exemption of $50,000 for the year. One-time exemption for any business doing work under $50,000. That's where I leave this discussion. I don't know what direction council wants to go in. I'm not advocating one direction or the other. I just know that this is something that some council members wanted to discuss in the past. We briefly touched on it at our last work session meeting, and I was asked to put this back on the agenda for this meeting. So I'm just educating you on what we have as far as categories and what our exemptions are with our current B&O.
Thank you, Michael. And as council may know, or the new members may not know, Mr. Thomas has been a proponent for us to look at the B&O tax. And that's one of the main reasons why it's been put on the agenda. We're going to discuss it. We're going to beat it till it's dead. Either we're going to take it or we're not going to take it, how it's going to go. Keeping in mind, we only have a couple of options. If we don't go with the B&O tax at all, we have always the sales tax. But that tax, the business and occupancy tax, suffices, and I don't know what's the proper word. It keeps us even keel within our general budget and our finances throughout the year. It's not something that we should take lightly at all. But personally, I have a problem with exemptions on a B&O tax. I don't like the B&O tax to begin with. It's old, it's antique-ish. Again, if we want to be a progressive community, we have to engage the newest standards that are sales tax. Standard sales tax across the board is the normal municipality way of doing that. But in this case with the B&O tax, I am opposed to an exemption. I think if one person or one business has to pay, then all businesses should have to pay. The tier structure to me doesn't make sense as well at $1 million. I understand when it was designed, and we've had this discussion before, and I don't want to rehash it all, but we understand why it was designed as the exemption to keep not to hurt any of the small mom and pops, retail or shops, any business that's less than $1 million, let's just put it that way. Well, if you're at $1 million or just under $1 million, or let's just say anywhere from $500,000 up, you should, and I believe, it's my opinion, that there should be a tax paid on that. That's just my opinion. That's where we're at now. The question would be how. I really would like to get this B&O tax issue resolved, whether we're going to do it or not, if we're going to continue, because we would need to make an ordinance to that effect. Is that correct, Mr. McCauley?
Yes,
I'll bring you back in.
You have in your package tonight a copy of Chapter 8, Article 11, Section 3 of the Code,
right,
and specifically Paragraph 1. In the following enumerated cases, the action of the governing body shall, except where otherwise provided in this code, be by ordinance. The first thing that is among those 11 things that always requires an ordinance is levying taxes or providing for the collection of fees of any kind. So the B&O tax is included within that.
And depending upon the timing we want to do it, and there is no rush on this, of course, but
I'll make a couple comments.
yeah. But it's been a while since we've addressed it, and maybe we need to readdress it. Mr. Thomas, what do you got, sir?
Well, I've really have been an advocate to have a comprehensive B&O tax, and I want to separate the $1 million exemption from the conversation about a comprehensive B&O tax. I've never understood why we as a city will provide that there are some business components out there that shouldn't even be considered like another component out there that we're providing the requiring the fee. I think it's wrong. I don't think it's a level playing field, and I think that's something that the council should address and pass, that we're going to have a comprehensive B&O tax, and that all segments of our business community are under the B&O comprehensive. That's one issue. Then the issue you have is, do you want to have any exemptions, like a $1 million or $500,000, whatever? And I have recommended several times in the past that we consider having a ad hoc committee or task force to, let's get the input of our business community out there about what is going to be, what's good for the future. Should we keep the $1 million exemption, or should it go to $1.5 million or down to $500,000? And when you're looking at the B&O tax, I also look at, the city has to look at the pool of monies that are available as a resource, and it's just not the B&O, but it's also the fire fee and the police fee and so forth. If we had not had the B&O, our police and fire fees would be much, much higher than they are today. I mean, we haven't had an increase in 31 years, I think, David, is what we talked about at one point in time.
Going on 33.
Okay. But to say that if you're a retail establishment and you're required to pay a B&O tax, and the office that's next to you is an attorney or an accountant, and they're not required to pay a B&O, I don't think that's fair, period. And I've been saying that ever since I've been on this council for 10.5 years. And I've, probably have some people that are friends of mine saying, well, too bad, Thomas, you haven't got, hasn't been addressed the way it needs to be. But I think everybody should be required to be under a comprehensive B&O tax, period. Then we can address the issue about do we change the exemption or not. So that's I feel very strongly about it. It's not fair, period.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else, Mr. Pugh?
Yeah, I agree with David on the fact that it's not right that the one guy should pay and one guy not. I don't understand why it was done that way to start with, but I'm also in favor of leaving the $1 million exemption up there. You're going to find out that some of these professional sources maybe make over $1 million. So that would get some money in from them, and also they would have the exemption of $1 million. To be fair and equitable about everything, you've got to include everybody that's working. Everybody that has a business out there. If Walmart's getting taxed, paying B&O tax, then CJ or anybody in here ought to be able to pay the B&O taxes too. But the only people that we would benefit if we implement a sales tax instead of a B&O tax is the big business. You're not helping me or my mother or anybody in here. We're going to have to pay more money on sales tax, and that's not what we're about. I don't think. I'm not for letting. We got rid of the sales tax. Let's keep it that way now. Let's don't implement another sales tax. What are we going to do? I don't know. I don't know how much it would raise if we went ahead and put all the other non-taxable people paying B&O tax. I don't know whether that would be a significant amount of money or not. What do you think, Michael? Do you think it would be a significant amount?
It depends. You got two issues, Ron. First thing, if you tax, in this case, professional services, the $1 million exemption, as I alluded to, is not indicative of every category we have.
Yeah.
You could have a professional services that would offer no exemption. You could have $1 million. You could have $500,000. Whatever. So it's really hard to gauge that. In a budget year, I would probably go low, very conservative. I mean, I wouldn't want to adjust any appropriations in any department or look at anything until, quite honestly, we had a solid year of collections. And when you're talking about taxing kind of the ebb and flow of some professions, a CPA or a lawyer may have a good year and may not have a great year. It's kind of like our contractors, B&O. We always, and you'll see this in this year's budget and in next year's budget, we always project very low because we just don't know that number. Now there is a general number you can aim at and hit every year. But I don't have access to that information. I mean, I could give you some type of an educated guess if I looked at it a little bit, but I wouldn't be held to it. But the $1 million exemption is something that you don't have to do. It's only for retail wholesale. It's the only thing that we have for that particular category.
I didn't mean to pick on CJ back there. He's the only one I saw.
That's all right. But, thank you, Ron. Any other questions? Let me get council first. Is there anybody else?
Well,
Go ahead, Pam.
I'm still in favor of $1 million exemption. And Dave keeps saying about things being fair. Well, life in general is not fair, Dave, about a lot of things. So, and it's the small business that keeps our downtown going. And it's people that's been in business for years and years and years. The Jake Andrags, the Lewis Jewelry, people that's been there for years. CJ's, done well downtown. And I don't want to hurt the small business people, so that's why I'm not in.
And I'm not advocating we eliminate the $1 million exemption. I think we have to separate the two issues. One is that we have a comprehensive B&O, so everybody is required to participate in that. And then the other issue we can talk about at some point in time, is do you want to keep the exemption at $1 million or eliminate it or change it? But those are two separate issues, not the same. And,
So are you gonna put a percentage on the certain amounts, or everybody's gonna be the same amount?
well,
The same percentage?
I'm not exactly sure what we should do.
He's-
but
what I think
but
he's
don't-
asking is
But
that-
I don't think we should say these extra categories are eliminated completely out. They just, they should be required, like a retailer or any other kind of business out there that's currently under the B&O, be also there too.
That makes sense. And I will say this, again, with leading this discussion is going along the lines of what Dave and what Ron had said, that I like the idea of a task force. I like the idea of bringing in, as you probably have seen from our earlier discussions, I like bringing in the community to discuss this. We will be discussing this as well, and I want to make the announcement out there that we're going to talk B&O taxes as well, and we invite all of the community to come out at our next, which we'll talk about at the end, is our town hall meeting, which we'll talk at the end about. So, CJ, you had something to say, sir?
Sure.
Thank you.
B&O tax, correct me if I'm wrong, the evolution of this. I think it started against the banks, when all our local banks turned into national holding companies or whatnot, so we taxed them. Then it was industrial. I believe there's Hinkle Rail Mill, maybe the only industrial in town. And then when we solicited and brought in Walmart and Lowe's, we established a $1 million exemption to protect the businesses that would be left after the impact of those two stores opening in our community would be. Now, I pay about $1,000 a year in B&O tax. If you remove the $1 million exemption, that costs me and a large number of other businesses $2,500 additional dollars a year. And I would, now in other communities where I operate, in Elkins, there's a comprehensive B&O tax, and it's 23 different economic enterprises, and on line 18 it says all other business entities. Now, but I would guard against the establishing something against the economic evolution, which is taking these business things against the business over time. And it doesn't take you far to look up 79. When you go to downtown Clarksburg or downtown Fairmont, where now everyone has left. There's a tipping point. And I've done, in preparation to talk about the fire fee, which it impacts me pretty severely, I did the math on what it cost me as a business to be in the city in contrast to being out in Tenor. So I looked at all my utility bills where there's local tax. Now, when these other taxes, I think our B&O taxes against the gas company, the electric company, and they just pass those on to us as a consumer.
Right.
So when I look at my gas bill, and my electric bill cost me $88 more a month because of B&O taxes. And very interesting, on the Suddenlink bill, they list B&O tax. They pass it on to us, and they probably charge an administration fee. But it costs me as a business, to be in the city about $5,800 a year currently. If you want to remove the $1 million exemption, add $2,500 to that. Now there's a point, and I've already closed 2 businesses in the city of Ashland, Kentucky, and in Fairmont, West Virginia, for municipal overreach and government, increasing the liabilities and the cost of doing business, and the reward for taking those risks is shrinking. And it shrinks to a point where you just say, no. And you need to guard against the fact that one of your only mechanisms for taxing is real estate owners or personal property. So I wonder if there's something wrong with me that I earn my living and invest all my money in downtowns, and I keep getting preyed upon.
New messages received from Rodney.
So I would consider that when you go if you go to a comprehensive B&O tax, which I'm not, when Dave says let's be equitable, just be aware that if there's professional services downtown, they just change their address. They could still have their office here, but their business entity is listed outside of the community. Or, New Jersey passed a tax on millionaires, and their projection revenue was about $230 million. When it came to the end of the year, they only had 60 million. They said, what happened? Well, who's the most mobile class is the affluent, and they just moved on, or moved out, or established residency somewhere else. So that's a little more than just the B&O tax, but just be cognizant that you preying upon businesses, a lot of people look at, businesses and property owners, are cows to be milked. But they're really, the horse pulling the cart. And I feel personally that I'm carrying my load in what it costs to operate a business downtown. So that's a bit of a stretch there, once I got on a roll.
Thank you, Kenny, I appreciate that.
If I could add to, the history's a little bit off, but you're conceptually right on. It's been, I think 1994 was when Buckhannon did its first B&O. Before that is the reason that your previous councils did these various B&Os. Until the mid-late 1980s, there was a program through the federal government known as revenue sharing. Right. And those pools dried up about 1987, 88. I think the final distributions might have been made as late as 89. When federal revenue sharing, which largely subsidized the operations of the Buckhannon Police and Fire Departments, those councils back in the late 80s, early 90s, about the time that Tony Gum was mayor, from 87 to 96, had to look at revenue streams because our budget for the city, the general fund, was really operating on a shoestring. And you're talking about a period of time where the total general fund might have only been $500,000 back then. Now the city's a $12, $13 million a year operation. I mean, things are way bigger than what they were versus 25, 30 years ago. So rather than to implement a comprehensive B&O, Buckhannon always promoted itself as being the most business-friendly city in the state of West Virginia. When we would go to municipal meetings, not just the big cities, but our sister cities of Bridgeport, Elkins, how do you do it? Are you doing it with smoke and mirrors? How do you continue to offer these services? Well, there came a point as we get into the early 90s, where we had to explore new revenue streams. And the easiest ones and the fairest ones to go after in the minds of the council at that time, first and foremost, utilities. Everybody uses utilities. You use more utilities, you're going to pay a little bit more because the 2% pass on with telephone, electricity, gas, everybody ended up really paying it because the utility companies, being the collectors of it, basically did a pass-through to the subscribers. And it's exactly what CJ mentioned. It's shown on your utility bill, municipal surcharge. That's really your utility B&O. After that, went a few more years. Again, revenues were tight. Cost of the city doing business increased. There's limited things that you can do to supplement the general fund. That's when the decisions were made because of banks not really being the old-time Adrian Buckhannon Bank or the old-time Central National Bank anymore, where you would see, French C in one place and Tom Clausen in the other place and Bill Young. We had holding companies. And oftentimes these holding companies were owned by enterprises that weren't even headquartered in West Virginia anymore. And there were no hometown discounts being done as you get into these mega holding companies that are owned by people in Columbus, Ohio or New York City. And the council at that time said this is the next logical expansion of the B&O to get into the financial institutions. So this B&O has been a progressive kind of a thing. Whereas revenues were needed, additional classes were added to it, to the point where we are now today, where essentially there are only 3 of 20 different enterprises that can be taxed under the B&O. Rents, landlords. What's going to happen if you hit the landlords? Well, they're probably going to pass it on to their tenants. Amusements. What do we really have of an amusement nature that's in the corporate limits right now? We don't have a movie theater. I suppose the bowling alley would be potential. skating rink is just outside the city limits, so you'd have to look long and hard at what would be generated by amusements. And then professional services. Some of the professional service folks are employees. The doctors at St. Joseph's Hospital who work as trauma physicians are employees of St. Joseph's Hospital. They're not going to pay that tax. The nurses at St. Joseph's Hospital, they're not going to pay that tax. The accountant that works for an accountant isn't going to pay that tax. The entity itself would pay a tax subject to whatever exemption that you might put in place. So when you go to actually listing the entities and the people who seem to be escaping the B&O, there really aren't that many. There really aren't that many. You might have 3 or 4 insurance agencies, you might have 3 or 4 realtors, you might have 10 or 12 lawyers. I'm not going to pay that tax. I'm an employee of the city of Buckhannon, and I'm an employee of West Virginia Western Coast. I don't have a private practice, so I'm not going to pay that.
We're going to find your offshore counsel. Don't worry
You see what I'm saying? When you get to what you might end up collecting, there's really not that many professionals that are falling through the cracks right now that aren't paying. Financial services folks are already paying because they fall under the same confines as the banks do.
So David, my advocacy for eliminating those categories from not being in the system, so to speak, is not trying to raise a bunch of money. Sure. I just want to have a level playing field, and that if we're going to have, I think we're the only city, am I right or wrong, Michael, that, is there any other cities that has these exclusion?
There's one other city, I believe, in the state.
What city's that?
Weirton, I believe, has some exemptions.
So all the others that have B&O have a comprehensive. And again, I don't have a problem with the $1 million exemption. I think that at some point in time in the future can be a graduated. You know, you pay a $500,000 exemption and you pay something between $500,000 and $1.5 million. But again, I still advocate that we ought to sit down with the businesses with an ad hoc committee and explore these options and say, you know, what makes sense for the future. And I appreciate CJ and what he said. I think that's, you know, none of us up here are entrepreneurs at all. We don't put our own capital at risk. So we need to be careful what we're doing.
I agree with you, Dave. And there used to be a time where we had a downtown business group organization where businesses from downtown and other businesses would get together with the city and discuss it. I think you're right. We may need to do that.
There is a Burma.
Is there?
Where? There's Burma. But do they deal with much up here in town?
I haven't heard of Burma for years.
I know they do a lot down in French Creek, but I agree with you. Maybe a committee should be set up to discuss that with the...
You got the Chamber of Commerce.
Here's my problem with this whole situation, and I keep hearing arbitrary and capricious in my head. I don't know why I keep hearing that
David
in my
always says
head.
that.
But I believe in this case, the B&O tax not being a comprehensive one falls within that category. And I know, because you know the definition much more than anybody else. Again, I don't like the idea that there's some people left out. It needs to be comprehensive, in my opinion, as it is. Anybody else from the audience want to add on to the B&O tax discussion?
I guess just one more comment. When you talk about downtown businesses, what you have to understand, when you look closely at the economic model of a majority of the businesses downtown, they are not for-profit businesses. These are people that want to participate in the community and operate a business, but you know, I see the traffic going in and out, and I know the philosophy behind what they're trying to do, and they're not there. They're generating enough revenue, making enough money to pay the bill and put money in their pocket. I mean, it's just not. It's not realistic.
Some of them have to pay rent.
Well, absolutely, let alone trying to purchase a building. So, but it's the same thing in Lewisburg and Shepherdstown. When you look at it, these people want to participate and operate a business to be part of something, and it's a lifestyle business, or I don't want to, you know, that's the polite term for it. And we don't want to disenfranchise those people and become like other communities that we're surrounded with, because, you know, first they want to live here, and then they want to participate. So there's a lot of people working on all these elements, and you you start tweaking it, it's a fragile tipping point, one more little cost or one more little expense. And I don't know if people think like I do, but when I first heard of the fire fee or this B&O tax getting exempted, I go off the charts and, I have all these socially unacceptable impulses, and my wife has to calm me down and say, no, CJ, you gotta get on yourself.
You just call Thomas up.
Then I try to take these socially unacceptable impulses and guide them into acceptable behaviors and examine what's happening and what can I do about it. So when you're talking about getting a group of people together to study it, you need to get people that operate businesses that don't live in the city, because you alienate stakeholders, and you're going to infuriate them, and they're not only going to fight you on that one issue, but every single subsequent issue that comes up, they're going to be against, not because it's because they've been alienated and don't have a say. So I would suggest when you're talking about revenue generating mechanisms that you hold public meetings first. This is the problem, this is the money we got to get. What would be an approach? What's a thought? And you can disarm a lot of the angst that comes out of when you throw a straw man out there and then everyone else responds. So,
CJ, you'd be a strong advocate to maintain the $1 million exemption. Is that correct?
absolutely. Well, it affects me, so it's personal. But,
Right.
do I feel that I need to be taxed $2,500 additional dollars? No, probably not. I would rather participate and do things in the community with, I think I can spend that money a little more effectively, but that's my own.
Thank you, CJ, we appreciate that. You bring very good things to the table. And I don't think the discussion is over yet. I see it. This discussion is by no means over. We're just beginning the dialogue. We've been discussing this for a few weeks or a few months now, how we're going to do that. Mr. Nolte, you got something to add to this discussion, sir?
Well, just to back CJ up, I mean, I'm located obviously outside of city limits in Patterson, but I mean, there's a lot of good things going on in the city. You got Main Street, of course, you have Northridge, folks are making investments in the community and within city limits. And it's definitely, there's a big difference. I mean, just before we even start the year, I'm operating $5,600 cheaper than CJ. And so you want to be careful. I mean, there's definitely a difference. I'm a couple miles from downtown Buckhannon. These folks right here have made a big investment, within the city limits, and you did.
That's your fire and police fee differential, is that right, Sam?
That, yeah, personal property. If you go through the utilities, CJ and I are pretty comparable as far as gas, electric, property tax, and it was, I think, what, $5,700.
Yeah. I mean, I have copies if you guys want to look at utility bills and tax bills to see that the increased cost that cost me to be in the city in contrast to be out of the city, just because it's surprising. A lot of people don't know that.
I want to make one thing clear, though. I don't want to pay an extra $5,700. But I am a big advocate for economic development.
I don't think the question really was with the council, it as a revenue stream, or preying upon any of our businesses downtown. That is actually not the case. Michael Dawson and I think the other council members I've discussed with, any real income that would come from the increase in a B&O if we lowered the exemption. My opinion is don't lower the exemption yet. Let's just make it comprehensive and fair for all across the board. That's my opinion. If not, though, if any of the difference we were looking at doing would be dedicated to certain projects in Bentown. For instance, if the B&O tax by a certain, if we lowered it, whatever the difference would be from what we have as an original base, any additional would be dedicated to certain things like improvement of the downtown area with pedestrian crosswalks, with paving of the streets, with additional lighting. So any of the funds like that, it's not a revenue stream for us, it would not be, but it would be a way to supplement or improve what we already have downtown. That's the thinking behind if we ever went to the point to lower the exemption, or if there was a large revenue stream coming in from the B&O tax, that's how we address it. It wouldn't be going to other other entities. So let me stress that again. We are not looking at this as a revenue stream. We definitely don't want to prey off our businesses downtown. My opinion, again, is not a comprehensive one. It needs to be comprehensive across the board.
And I want to say too that the B&O is a tax, okay? But the city fire protection fee, the service fee, that's a fee. That's not considered a tax. It's just a fee. And you can say, well, it's just another word for it, but it's not, according to West Virginia State Code. Is that correct, Dave McCauley?
You still have to have an ordinance.
Yes, you have to have an ordinance.
Or a tax. The fee is a service.
Right.
Whether you need the service or not. I mean, the state of fire protection is a service in and of itself.
Right.
We have to have a fire department staff with vehicles and have our firefighters trained. And same thing with the police department. That's different from a flat-out tax. In fact, in your packet you have tonight, as you get ready to talk about the fire fee, there is the case, a 1982 case, decided in October of '82, Hare versus City of Wheeling. And the City of Wheeling, back then, wanted to do a tax, they called it a fee, that was going to be based upon the assessor's valuation of properties throughout Ohio County. And that's what Wheeling was going to collect to run its fire department. There were some businesses, the Hares primarily, who brought a class action lawsuit against the City of Wheeling. Ohio County Circuit Court Judge Reck, you might have heard of him before, Art Reck, found for the City of Wheeling. The case went to the West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals, and they found that manner of calculation of the fire fee based upon property values to be an ad valorem tax, which exceeded the maximum that was already allowed for taxation of real estate. And so they basically said you got one of two choices as you calculate fire fees. You can either do it on a flat fee basis or on a square footage basis. I mean, that might lead into your next part of your discussion.
Well, thank you, David.
Are we looking for a segue?
Are we finished with the B&O?
Not quite. I haven't asked if everybody in the audience had anything to say besides what we've already had introduced. Thank you very much for all the comments from the audience and participating with us on this. Dave, did you have something to add to that then? Because we are fixing to move on to the fire fees. David?
Me?
Yeah. Thomas?
Well, yeah, I got some strong opinions about the fire and police fee, but.
Okay, yeah, we're heading down that road now. If anybody else wanted to say anything on B&O, this would be your time to say it, or forever hold your peace until the next meeting.
Well, you might point one thing out.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
the
go ahead.
fact that if we would put on a sales tax within the city, then we would have to do away with some of the B&O taxes.
Yes.
So, and actually it would benefit us not, because we wouldn't be making enough to get higher. It'd just still come out with a balance. So why put on a sales tax when you have to get rid of an income of B&O tax? It's just, we're not a large enough city to do that.
I'd agree, and I would not recommend changing from B&O to a sales tax at this point.
Conceptually, I would favor sales tax versus a B&O tax.
I like the efficiency of it.
Conceptually.
Yeah,
But
all right, then moving on from there, I will allow at this point the B1 in our, because it'll lead us into the fire protection and police protection fee. The presentation and discussion of the 15-610 department requisitions for police and fire. And I will let the older senior statesman speak first so we can go first.
If I can, before.
Go ahead.
before
Oh,
they
yeah,
go.
Mr. Dawes.
Because I want to take this time because March is going to be a little interesting for me personally, and then we're making a trip to Washington also. And our budget is due to the state of West Virginia by the 28th of March. So I want to take this opportunity to you don't have the entire 15-16 budget, but we have to have budget work sessions. So I'm going to kind of take this time to have this budget work session, even though you don't have the budget in front of you. And I want to elaborate on why I'm taking that approach. Last Friday was the deadline for all general fund departments to submit their budgets for the 15-16 fiscal year. The street department submitted their budget, Stockard submitted their budget. Their budgets are really not much different in their requisitions of what they asked for the current fiscal year. There's really nothing glaring. There's no request for additional personnel or any major capital expenditures. So from my review of those submittals, I really didn't see an issue with those. And again, I will be bringing the entire budget up to you sometime in early February. But there were a couple of requests, and I'm not picking on them, but there were requests from Chief Gregory and Chief Tacey of the Police and Fire Department, which were some requisitions that I felt within their budget that they should come to council and discuss before we move further with finalizing their department budgets. As far as their requests for most of their capital expenses, their day-to-day operations, that was generally the same as far as an inflationary as what they've asked for in the past, and including this current year. But there were some compensation issues, some personnel issues that both Chief Gregory and Chief Tacey wanted to talk about. So I will be presenting the entire budget to you at a later date, later date. But I wanted to have those gentlemen speak to you tonight about a couple of items within their requisitions for 15-16's budget year that will have an impact on us moving forward and essentially finalizing the budget for next year for your consideration. So I just wanted to lay that foundation.
Yeah, we appreciate that, Michael, you're right. And the reason why I'm going to go ahead and start off actually with Chief Gregory, it's going to lead us into the fire fee discussion after Mitch gives his discussion. And then we can have a lively discussion on how the fire fee is going to help us alleviate some of the critical conditions we have at the fire department. Matt, if you don't mind, yes, sir. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Yeah, I know, I'm reading it.
You put a rug up there and hang a picture in there and see.
Chocolate's great.
I want to take a basket where I get it. Yeah. Whatever.
Okay, I'll just kind of walk council through the budget and the sheets that I handed out to you there. The front sheet is just representative of the general budget request that I submitted to Mr. Doss. The proposed 2015-16 budget came in at $925,846. Of that amount, we anticipate $41,000 being grant funds, and that represents 4.4% of the total budget from external revenue. This figure is representative of just the general operating costs that we have been operating under for several years now. It does not represent any kind of raise for the employees in this figure in and of itself. However, I do want to address that here in just a moment. This figure also represents the acquisition of 3 more cars. This is on our replacement plan. Several years ago, working with Mr. Doss, we put together a capital improvement plan, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was a 5-year plan when we did this. It was about 3 years ago. We called for the replacement of 3 vehicles currently in our fleet, the 2008, 2009, and 2010 vehicles, model year respectively. We called for those to be replaced actually this fiscal year, the one we're currently operating in right now. Lieutenant Loudon and I looked at the condition of the fleet and felt that we could forego at least another year, and so we left acquisition of vehicles out of the budget. In fact, we haven't acquired, correct me if I'm wrong, but we haven't acquired new vehicles in our replacement plan for our fleet since 2012. And we're currently about midway through on those vehicles. We try to keep our vehicles, when we purchase them, generally we'll purchase them under 5-year lease purchase contracts. And we try to extend it at least between 5 and 6 years, just depending on the condition of the vehicle. Like I said, we did have the 08, the 09, and the 2010 scheduled for replacement this current fiscal year. We stretched another year out of it. I really think that's about as far as we could go. One of the vehicles is currently out of service. That's the 08, am I right? The 08 Crown Vic. It had a blown engine, and it was going to cost around $5,000 to replace the engine, so we just kept it out of service. That was worth almost as much as the vehicle itself. We put value, and it was very, very close to that, so we just took it out of service. So this is just part of the replacement plan, part of the doing business. We are looking at, like I said, 3 of the SUVs. This is what we just acquired in 2012, and again seeking a 5-year lease purchase plan. That and the acquisition of the newer emergency equipment, and the movement of the existing radios from the cruisers now over to the new cars. We factored those costs in as well, and so that figure is representative of this total $925,846 proposal. If you compare it to our current operating budgets, and this is actually the number that I used for the 14-15 budget was what we had at the middle of the fiscal year. That was $920,500. I think it's a little higher than that now because of the adjustments that we just did. But using that figure, the proposed amount is only $5,346 higher, or 0.5% higher. So again, just general operating costs that we've had. Now, what I would like council to take a very serious look at and implore you to consider very seriously is the next couple pages in this packet, and that is what I termed the addendum 1, or proposed salary increases for the city police officers. The first spreadsheet is a breakdown of each of the officers and their current hourly rate. And my proposed increase is $2 on the hour for each of the employees, excluding myself. So from Lieutenant Loudon down, I'm proposing a $2 on the hour increase. And for our administrative assistant, Jessica Jenkins, I'm proposing a $1 on the hour increase for her as well. So the middle column is their hourly wage, representative of the $2 on the hour proposed increase. And then I totaled that out to the annual cost as well on the right side, so you can see what the total salary would be annually. Now that is just the base. That is just their base figure. If you turn to the third page, I work the proposed increases into the total budget and factor in not just base, but how these increases are going to affect the holiday pay, the overtime pay, as well as our contributions to the FICA tax and retirement. And so you'll see the respective increases in the right-hand side column after the proposed salary increase. So if council agrees to these increases, the total budget at that time would be $978,392. Okay, that's everything that I'd proposed in the general budget, plus the $2 on the hour increase for the officers from lieutenant down, and the $1 on the hour increase for our administrative system. Now the final page is some justification for just basically to demonstrate I'm not just pulling this number out of thin air. And why I really want to implore council to take a very serious look at that is because we have to, with our compensation package, we have to be very concerned about, first and foremost, recruitment of quality employees, and just as, if not more important, retention of the good employees that we have. So recruitment and retention are the key factors with this. As I'm sure, and this isn't taking anything away from anybody else, any other department. I'm just speaking primarily from the police point of view because that's really all I know. That's all I've done in my adult life. But it's very difficult to attract good police employees, to get educated, very well-rounded, dedicated individuals. It's very much a challenge, and that's not just this department. That's any department has that challenge. That's something that we have to face. And one of the factors to get over to address that is to have an attractive compensation package. Same goes with retention, with retaining our good employees. We put a lot of time and a lot of effort, and a lot of training goes into molding our police force and each of our officers. From the time they're first hired and the field training process that they go through, the academy, the things that they deal with there, to the ongoing training that officers are required to go through, and that we as an agency have them go through as well, through many of the specialities that we have with our department. We put a lot of effort into making our officers the best that they can be, and to retaining good employees. And so certainly, if you want that level of commitment and dedication, that level of professionalism, you're going to have to pay for it. And I say that and direct your attention to this last page because it is very competitive to keep good employees. And the figures that I use are the agencies right around us. Because especially the one right down the street, the Sheriff's Department, that's going to be a very strong competitor. We have lost officers to that agency. Good veteran officers that have a lot of years of experience, a lot of education, we've lost to the Sheriff's Department. I do not like seeing that happen. I hate seeing us put that much time into an employee and that much effort only to see a revolving door in our agency. We really want to, as much as we possibly can, try to get away from that and focus on retaining our good employees. Certainly all the things that they deal with, I won't go on and on about that. You know, I've talked in detail about all the things that officers deal with, all the things that they do above and beyond the call of duty. And that goes very much for Jessica Jenkins, our administrative assistant. You know, even though she's not a police officer, she does a lot. She has an enormous amount of duties, and they've increased since we left City Hall. When we took over our new residency, she's basically the office manager where we're at now. So she has a lot more things that, not that she wasn't already doing a lot here at City Hall through her connection with the police department, but she took even more on to her plate as she went down to the police department. But if you will indulge me, I shared with you the starting rates of the various police agencies, and the one that's really the most eye-opening is, again, the Sheriff's Department. For a brand new guy right off the street who's never worked a single day of law enforcement, he's making $16 an hour. $16 an hour. That's not even, he's not even in the academy making that. And if you compare that over to our salary schedule, you'll see that that's just about as much as one of our officers who's been here for over 3 years, and he's certified and has a 4-year degree in criminal justice. And certainly their pay only goes up, and this is just their starting right out of the academy, $16.31 an hour. Very competitive. The same goes for the Randolph County Sheriff's Department, the Lewis County Sheriff's Department. Weston's probably the only one that's the closest to us in terms of their salary structure. Elkins appears to be closest to us, but the thing with Elkins is they have a very attractive longevity pay. First off, out of the gate, it's my understanding that if you're certified and you get it at Elkins, the very first thing you get is a check for a little over $7,000 because you're certified to attract you to come to that agency. The next thing they do is they pay you a longevity check every year. And so although their starting pay is comparable to what ours is, and that's basically what ours is. Ours is between $13 and $15 an hour starting, depending on your certification and level of education. In fact, Elkins got that figure from us. They were much lower than us a few years ago, and the mayor, one of their council members came over and met with me, took my plan back and adopted this.
What's their
in addition to their longevity pay.
What is their longevity pay?
So their longevity pay for 1 to 5 years, and this is an annual payment, is $3,000. 6 to 10 years is $3,500. 11 to 15 is $4,000. 16 to 20 is $4,500. And then 21 to 30, where they cap it out, is $5,000. That's an annual check that they pay their officers, starting right out of the gate from year 1 all the way up to year 30. So if you take that and you work that into their hourly rate, $3,000 is $1.50 an hour. So they're well ahead of us when it comes to that. So we want to be, with that regard, we want to stay competitive with our wages. We want to keep good employees. We want to attract good employees. We want to keep the employees that we have, the things that we expect these folks to deal with from day to day, and all the effort and time that we put into them as well. So I humbly present to you this proposal, and I really implore you to take a good hard look at it.
Thank you, Matt. You bring up some really good points in your presentation as well. And thanks for giving us the comps on all of the rest too, because we're going to be talking about this a little bit too concerning our fire department. And really, I'm not even going to echo everything. All your points are valid. Anybody on council got anything that they want to say or comment to, Chief?
I would like to know if you know what the state police make starting out.
Oh, not to quote you exactly what it is, I don't, but I know it's even higher than what we're looking at with these local agencies. Yeah, they're attractive. 17 something in there. It's very attractive, and I'll tell you, that's a good point that you raised. That state police have a program now called it's basically a lateral transfer program. Before, if I wanted to go to the state police or another city or county officer wanted to go to the state police, we'd have to, when they hired us, we'd have to go start completely over and go all the way through their academy. We don't have to do that anymore. We just have to go back for a portion of their academy to become certified as a state police officer. So they've recently passed that in the last year or so. In fact, they recruit, they call city and county officers basic officers at the academy. The state police actively recruits the top students in the basic class.
Well, I understand.
One of our officers got a letter from the state police.
But still yet I understand that other states are recruiting from our state police too, because we are low in comparison to the other states.
Yeah.
And we have one of the 3 best academies in the nation.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
I got a quick question for you, Chief. Now, you know, with the home rule that we've done, we're looking at the part-time officers for your department. That's part of one of our 4 pillars. Do you feel that if because we're going to continue with that, we're pretty much obligated. I mean, we can take our time and drag our feet on it, but we don't intend to do that because we want to clear the table and begin some other things. Do you feel that you can with the 2 new part-time employees, do you feel that within your budget, even if we didn't go with the $2, that you can alleviate some of the overtime that you pay on the other officers? How would we make up? Because we're already looking at increasing you by, you could essentially say 1 officer at two part-times.
Yeah.
Do you feel that you would still need that? How do you see the 2 part-time officers fit into your budget? And can overtime be eliminated within some of the other officers with the part-times?
Maybe to a small degree, but I don't think that
Not
enough to make a difference, honestly, because doing payroll every 2 weeks, I'll pay very close attention to where our overtime hours are. And you could probably back me up on this. I could probably speak out a little closer because I'm focusing solely on the police department. But the bulk of the overtime is grant time that the officers are working, whether it be a DUI patrol or a domestic grant or whatever. So they're still going to work that grant time whether we have 9, 10, 11 officers. It's just
So it doesn't affect your budget per se because it's already accounted for as far as your grant money?
not enough to make a difference, I don't think.
The part-time, obviously, the biggest incentive for the part-time is the fact that, you save in your benefits package, obviously, is your major.
Well, the county's only going to hiring 20-hour part-timers anyway at this point for all of their new employees. Any other questions for Chief?
I have a couple
Comments?
observations.
Sure.
Comments. I think when you look at the competitive salaries or hourly rate, we again have to remember what is their total compensation package in regard to health insurance and some other things. So I think that's something that needs to be addressed. I got some other issues, but I don't want to talk about them this evening in this forum. I'd rather go into an executive session at some point in time with Matt. I think there's a cost side of the equation too that I'd like to make some observations, but not this evening. And again, I'd like to do it in a session that is giving us an opportunity to talk about some other issues that I think are very important that have been brought to my attention recently, and want to share that with Matt.
Okay. We could absolutely do that. That's not a problem at all. In fact, probably our next budget meeting where we won't have a lot of the discussion in the audience that we would normally have because we're talking all numbers and boredom. But we'll do that. Dave, thank you very much for that. Anybody else?
We don't have to we're not making a decision on this
No.
this evening.
No. This is just all, this is a budget revision that we're talking about, and because of Michael's, there's going to be timing issues, we want to make sure we get that out there before we go into those discussions.
It's something that would be nice to have before we adopt the budget. So a decision sometime in February,
I agree with Matt, though, that, and I'm seeing a lot of this within our civil service departments, that competition, and not only there, within all other departments. We lost a street person, one of our street workers, to the oil well companies for much more money, and he was diversified in 3 different areas within our department. It was a great hit to our department when we lost him, primarily for compensation and what they are offering them, our guy.
And they're starting to lay people off.
Yeah, there's going to be an issue with that, so probably as well. Matt, thank you very much for all of your insight and information. We will do, of course, whatever we can do to help provide the services you need. I am going to ask for a 10-minute break. I've got to use the restroom, as I imagine some of our other friends do. I'll adjourn for 10 minutes, and then
how about 5 minutes?
5 minutes? I hear that.
It'll be 10 minutes, Dave.
It'll be 10 minutes.
And then we'll go on to the fire fee discussion, and then I hope that's not going to be as long a discussion. I think we can get through that one. Thank you. 5 minutes? All right, I'm going to call the meeting back to order, please. The last session, thank you very much for that break. I think we all needed it. 2 hours, I think, on any meeting, you should have a break, a couple minutes to stretch out, to talk, do the things you have to do. The last thing on our items for discussion tonight is the discussion of our proposed fire fees. Before we get to that, though, we have a presentation from Chief Casey on the fire department, so we have a better idea of what we're discussing when we talk fire fees. Keep in mind that this is his budget for 15 and 16 we're looking at. does not include anything that we're discussing on the fees yet, that I'm aware of. There may be.
No, there's nothing here, Mayor, that pertains to any increase in fire fees. I have no idea what those numbers are. I presented to you, I'll be really brief, there are two scenarios. You have one budget that is before you with the current staffing. We currently have a staff of 4 career firefighters plus myself. Those guys work on a 4-day platoon. The budget for the current staffing, not much change in for salaries. I'd like to propose $1 an hour increase for our 3 tenured employees, and then they will, they're in the process of testing for their promotional exams as well. I also would like to raise the starting pay for our trained firefighters from $11 an hour to $12 an hour, and leave our fee for untrained firefighters as it is. It costs a tremendous amount of money to train a firefighter. It takes a lot of on-duty time if a guy isn't trained, and if we can jump that hurdle and hire already trained firefighters, it's just it's money in the bank for us. Auto supplies increasing at $3,000 due to an aging fleet. We have one unit that's going to need tires, and we have an overall increase in maintenance cost that's well above 5%. Our capital outlay, we normally, for years past, have had $50,000 in that. Again, this year, we're looking at putting the city partnering with the volunteer fire department. The volunteer fire department is looking at purchasing a new rescue pumper. We're going to deplete our fleet of 2 vehicles. We're going to hopefully get rid of 2 vehicles and replace it with 1 vehicle, and that weeds up some of our insurance maintenance costs. And I think anybody knows anything about maintaining a fleet that has $1 million worth of equipment in it, that's kind of a big deal. It'll be $25,000 in partnering with the volunteer for the purchase of the new rescue truck. That won't cover the whole cost. That'll just be part of a payment for a financial package. And also a $25,000 partnership with the volunteers to purchase new rescue tools to put on this rescue truck. Some of our jaws of life is the generic term. Some of our equipment's over 30 years old. We just recently bought the new battery-powered cutters because some of our equipment is getting to the point it doesn't want to deal very well with the new metals. Keeping with current budget last year, the one you're always worried about, wages last year for 2014-2015 were $234,000. They're about that same this year. The current staffing about $232,000. We'll add roughly about 28% to that for fringes for FICA unemployment and those items. Everything else, all the other line items are pretty much in line with what they have been for the past few years. Maintenance, most of the stuff we do ourselves. So the big one is the salaries and the increase in auto supplies, which is not significant. In a capital outlay, the capital outlay's been $50,000. We were doing that when the city partnered with the volunteer fire department and bought a new pumper. I hope that you folks understand how important it is in partnering when we buy this equipment. The last fire truck we bought was $303,000. Okay. So out of that we got a $60,000 grant, so that left roughly, I'm going to use $240,000 that each, for the total purchase price of that fire truck. Each entity, by partnering, got credit for a new fire truck to the tune of about $120,000. So you folks had $120,000, the volunteer fire department had $120,000 in about a $310,000 piece of equipment. So that's what we're hoping to do the same thing with the new rescue pumper. It's going to be very expensive. Cost this truck probably, at a minimum, I'm going to say is going to touch on $500,000. So that's one reason that we want to get rid of 2 pieces of equipment. Our current rescue truck is a 94 model, and the pumper that we want to replace is a 95 model. So we want to get rid of those 2 pieces of equipment and just have 1 piece of equipment. It'll be our rescue truck, run our first 2 on car wrecks, any type of rescue call. It will have a complement of, our current rescue truck has no water, has no pumping capabilities. This new rescue pumper will have. It will have the capability to pump. You also get credit for a Class A pumper, which is important for our ISO rating. But keep in mind, we'll be replacing, take one piece of equipment and replace two to an aging fleet.
Chief, you say an aging fleet, that refers mainly to the equipment and everything that the feds require you to have?
Yeah.
Yeah. But your trucks really don't have a lot of miles on them.
No, they don't have a lot of miles on, but it gets to the point that with the ISO to maintain our current rating, like your first out pumper, they prefer it not to be older than 10 years. Anything in reserve can be older than that. We have a rescue truck. We have a rescue truck, one pump and two pumpers that collectively are 94, 95, and 96 model. We have a 2002 pumper, and our last two purchase of the pumper is a 2009 Sutton. Our ladder truck is a 1986 model. To replace that ladder truck, we have applied for a grant to replace that ladder truck new with one that's comparable to it. Is just shy of $1 million. You're looking at about, I've seen them sell a price like what we have for $1.2 million. Keep in mind, there's nothing on these trucks that I'm telling these prices that is lavish. I mean, we're not talking, our doors on our last truck are still aluminum. We didn't even have the doors, the roll-up doors painted on what was a cost saving. So I'm not, when I tell you, this rescue pumper's $500,000, don't think, well, he's getting one with chrome wheels, we can get one for $100,000. That's a bare bones necessity. Same thing with the ladder truck. Ladder truck's $1 million, it's just.
But if you don't update these trucks, then there's a chance that the insurance rates will go up for the people in the city?
There is an absolute certainty that that will happen, absolutely.
Thank you.
The big issue in budget number 2 is, and that ties into part of our, I have requested 2 firefighters come heck or high water. So my second budget shows a reflection for an additional 2 firefighters in my budget on salaries from $232,000 to $292,000. You're looking at starting a firefighter at about $30,000 a year, plus that about 20. So you're looking at about another $18,000. So we're looking at about $78,000 to get those 2 guys started. If we hire trained firemen, then we can absorb a lot of the training cost. It takes a long time when we get a firefighter in a building to train him to do the job. They have to learn the city, learn the water system. There's a phenomenal amount of stuff they have to learn. So if we get guys that are already trained, we can eliminate taking them out and showing them this is an axe, this is how loud, this is how loud.
New message is received from Rodney.
To the big ticket item. Clothing, we would add an additional $800 for the 2 hires. Our guys are allowed a $400 per employee clothing allowance. That's to buy their duty pants, duty
New
boots,
message is received
shirts.
from Rodney.
We do furnish all their protective clothing is furnished when they don't buy anything. That being said, it's no secret that we're short on firemen. Volunteerism, the guys do a great job of volunteering, but as a lot of you know, they've got kids in soccer, cheerleading, gymnastics. Some of them are working tremendous amount of hours. We have a current opening which will put our staff to 4. I'd like to hire 2 more guys. That would give us a paid staff of 6, and we could go to a 3-day shift rotation, and that would provide us with 2 guys on duty all the time. That would be a blessing for us. At least we could have some type of certainty for these guys. I could stand up here and talk to you for hours, and these guys could stand. These guys probably more than myself know what it's like to be at that fire station and know when there's a car wreck comes in, somebody's trapped in a vehicle. Could be your mother, your brother, your sister, or there's a house fire and nobody's going. I could allude to a fire that we had. Yes, it wasn't in the city, but the consequences, the numbers work out the same. The guy took off in a truck was 70 years old and his firefighter was 60. The only change in that equation would have been the age of the guy driving the fire truck. It's Last year, we ran almost 550 calls. We do not do any EMS, that's not running any medical calls. We do that on a as-needed basis. If the ambulance service requests us to go help them lift a patient, help with CPR, that sort of thing, we do not normally run on medical calls. And back up to the training, the basic training for a firefighter before you can even put his feet on the street or on a fire truck is 150 hours. We require much more of that. That don't get you to the firefighter. When our guys have to have a firefighter level 2 certification, they have to have a pump ops class. Being an emergency medical technician is now a condition of employment as well. So we have very high standards for our employees, and that can be the reason that we've requested a salary increase for these guys. It's getting to be a competitive world. My son works for the Bridgeport Fire Department, and I know what they pay their starting firefighters or paramedics. They start to work almost at $40,000 a year. Granted, that's for paramedics, but EMTs are only about $3,000 less than that. So we're not asking for the world, but the 2 additional firefighters.
New message is received from Rodney.
I'm sorry.
It's going off button.
Yeah, I know, I'm gonna do it.
The 2 additional firefighters is kind of it's not a want. It has come to the point that it's a need. We're not functioning very safely. We're not providing a very good service to our citizens. The demand that society places on our volunteers anymore is just taking them away from the fire station in leaps and bounds. We're not getting any new firemen. We've tried everything in the world for recruitment. We're having another recruitment meeting Saturday. We've tried to be very creative. We've been to the college. One blessing we have is that we've partnered with the college. We have a live-in program where one of their college students gets his tuition fees waived by staying at the fire station. And that's a help, but college kids go home for the summer, and there we are again. We've talked about hiring firemen, well, what if we just get you one through the day? Well, the problem with having one through the day is all of our emergency calls don't happen during the day. Saturdays are terrible. These guys will tell you, at least throughout the day, maybe somebody will take off work. Saturday, we've got guys riding motorcycles out, family picnics, boating, camping, playing soccer, coaching basketball, coaching football. We have just got to do something for the safety, more or less for the safety of our firefighters. I mean, our society's changed, and sending these guys out with themselves or having them to have to wait, not knowing if someone's ever going to be with them, it's just mind-numbing. And as a fire chief, that's my biggest fear, my biggest complaint about my job is my staffing. That's just the uncertainty when the daytime, whether anybody's going to be there to help you or not, whether anybody's actually going to show up. And so that's pretty much where we're at, and you guys have heard my speech before, so I guess I'll field any questions if you have them. If not, we'll move on to other things, I suppose.
Any questions for Mitch?
Mitch, if you have a call and you only have one guy, and they go on that call and it's a fire, are they allowed to go in without anybody else being there to even to rescue somebody?
If they have to rescue somebody as their boss and has being employed you better certainly hope that they don't get injured. The federal government has instituted that we have a generic term for it. It's called 2 in, 2 out. For every 2 firefighters inside the building, you have to have 2 firefighters outside the building. We're also mandated to have a RIT team of a minimum of 4. That's in addition to the 2 out, the 2 in, 2 out. We can't comply with minimum staffing to meet those standards at any time. But can one fireman go in and one fireman, he may go in, but one fireman, unless it's a child, for one fireman to rescue anybody is a terrible ordeal to even think about. If he gets hurt, I mean, you're at the mercy of whomever. It's just a terrible safety concern.
Have you been having to do a lot of overtime, only having 3 guys?
Yes.
So we're really, in the long run, going to be losing money, right? By not having an extra person.
Well, yes, you're spending more in overtime now because of the shortage. Yes.
I got one too.
Go ahead, Mr. Thomas.
Go ahead, Dan.
And we're not just talking about your budget, but we're talking about fire fees too.
Not yet.
No.
Well,
We will be.
but part of the operation, I'm asking, I guess, the operation. You said, Mitch, when you made a presentation a couple council meetings ago, and you had gone to Bridgeport, or I guess you and Rick and Michael went up to Bridgeport. The sphere of influence, I'm not sure that's the correct terminology to use, but for example, if Kroger's has a fire, who responds to that?
The fire department, we have an understanding that was promoted by council. If there is a major call outside the city limits, being hence a structure fire or a vehicle wreck with entrapment that is within our first due area, our paid guys go to that basically to supplement the volunteers. The volunteers supplement. I don't like to draw that line because we are the Buckhannon Fire Department, but to answer your question, yes, our paid staff does respond on those calls.
What's your first due
Area.
What's how far does it
On to Sago, to Lewis County line,
Wow.
out almost to a little bit past Lowe's to Paradise. Going east on 33, past Kiesling Mill intersection some ways, out the Tallmansville Road, just about Orchard Drive, somewhere along there.
The whole area of Tennerton, basically?
Yes, all Tennerton, yes, everything up towards Sago, everything out Brushy Fork Road to the Stony Run intersection. All right, Brush.
All right, thank you.
Are we compensated? Are we compensated for that in any way? City?
We'll talk about that in the fire fees.
You mean, does anybody pay us back for doing that? No, ma'am.
You get 1/7 of $50.
There's a county fire fee that they collect outside of the city. I think it's 25 residents and 50 business. And that is dispersed between the 7 departments, 7 in, I'm sure. We're one of the 7, and it's divided.
The city does that to complement the volunteer fire department, because we in turn rely heavily on the volunteer fire department. I don't, you can draw lines in the sand that you went here and you went there, but the bottom line is, I'd hate to think that I'm sitting in a fire station and I don't go 20 feet past the Brushy Fork intersection, and the mayor comes up to me and goes, "Hey, Mitch, that's my sister's out there in that wreck. Why didn't you guys go?" We are too small of a community to have territorial lines and start breaking down. We're not large enough. This community is not large enough to do that, and we are a community. We're just not big enough to do that. If you want to talk about, I will tell you that the county residents pay a fire fee. I believe it's $25 for residents, $50 for industrial, which means the folks out at Trust Joyce pay $50 out of the county, as well as some of the business folks here do. What I'd like to reiterate to you, the $25,000, or out of the $25 that you pay, your local fire department gets less than 1/7 of that.
Right.
That fire fee is divided, the $25 that the folks in our first due area who are outside the city limits, that $25 that they pay, we get about $3.27 or 31 cents of that, because it's split 7 ways equally among all the fire departments in the county. Plus there's administrative cost taken out of that.
That's per year, right?
That's per year. That pays the salary of a girl at the courthouse to distribute fire fees. So that's right.
Any other questions or comments?
I've heard that some people have said that the insurance companies will pay a fee to the fire department if the owner requests it.
If you live in an area that pays a fire fee, they will not. Trying to collect off of the insurance, I can name you some that are terrible, I'm not going to, but they're terrible to collect. And it's hard if you are paying a fire fee, you particularly are paying a fire fee to the city of Buckhannon, I can't in turn bill you for services. That's just not.
No, you can't bill me, but do insurance companies, do they ever pay claims to fire departments for injury?
Occasionally, maybe in a rural area, they don't us.
Yeah, go ahead, Roy.
Mitch, in the last, say, 5 years, have you had more residential or more commercial responses to fires? Not accidents, fires.
Residential problem?
Is there 10 times the houses?
Yeah, but there you got 10 times the houses,
Yeah.
so.
You're gonna
A
have
lot
a
of
lot more
our,
house fire.
Okay, so your answer is residential.
But
a
it
lot
takes
of-
more to fight a commercial fire.
but a lot of, we run probably on commercial buildings more, we run a lot of alarm investigations, sprinkler issues, that sort of thing, so.
And that's something we need to address as well, and that's something we've discussed.
But one, you gotta take in mind, one commercial fire, and we've had several commercial fires. They tax your resources much more than a residential fire. A lot of our residential fires, you know, you see the building over here, the Roller Star, you know, those were devastated because they were pretty well gone when we get there. A lot of times we have better luck with a residential fire.
Does everybody understand the budget revisions that Mitch is asking for as far as the two drafts he has here? I would ask that by the next budget discussion we have, you had a chance to review those, come up with your suggestions or how you're gonna want to discuss this. Mitch, thank you very much for your report. We know the work that you guys do. We're doing our best to address, as we have been, which I'll allude to Mr. Doss here, we have tried exploring just about every option or possibility there is, including going to Bridgeport and determining what their fire fee structure is and how that works. We've also investigated other municipalities. I think that the council would agree with me to see that we definitely have an urgent need to address our fire department's needs, particularly in the personnel area. At this point, I will allude to Mr. Doss to discuss the fire fee that, as he has put it into an ordinance form, and just give the basics to you on where we're at on that, Mr. Doss.
Yeah, it really is that, Mayor. It is basic. And Mr. McCauley and I got together. I shared a formula with Mr. McCauley, a little bit loosely based off of Bridgeport, with the exception of Bridgeport tackled their first due within their ordinance. Trying to come up with a way to focus our fire fee schedule a little bit more from a sensible standpoint, dealing with square footage. Currently, our fire fee schedule, as well as our police, is based off of annual gross receipts when we're talking about businesses. We have a flat fee for our residential for fire. The flat fee just for fire alone for residents, regardless of the square footage, is $1.50 a month. When we get to the businesses, there's a little bit of a different structure, again, based off of gross receipts, much like it is with B&O. The one thing that we're running into, again, these fees were created back in 1982, 83, when the gross receipts, the cap on gross receipts were anything over $200,000. Anything over $200,000 back then was $15 a month. The interesting thing is, back then is present as well. Most businesses make over $200,000, but they still pay $15 a month. Roughly, we bring in about $75,000 a year annually for police, since this fee structure is the same for. Since the same structure is the same for fire, we bring in about $75,000 for police as well. So each department brings in $75,000. Chief Gregory mentioned how much his budget request is for this fiscal year coming up, and you just saw Chief Casey's, budgetary request. Now again, we're bringing in about $75,000 total residential and commercial. I just want to read this a little bit more because you know the cap on our fire fee schedule is any business grossing over $200,000 brings in $15 a month. There's other interesting parts to this schedule of fees that I'll read if you don't mind. Another portion of this says if it is a fraternity, a sorority, a dormitory, a rooming house, a hospital, a nursing home, or a rest home, whether occupied or not, we use this schedule below. The fire fee is $2.40 a month, plus $2 for each bed, $1 for police, $1 for fire. The total monthly fee for any fraternity, sorority, dormitory, rooming house, hospital, nursing home, or rest home will not exceed $30 a month. That's $30 a month. If you cut that in half, that's $15 police, $15 fire. In addition to that, if it's a religious, charitable, educational, government, or nonprofit organization, the fire fee is $2.40 a month. Some of these businesses make well over 200,000. Some make multi-millions. And you can do the math yourself on exactly what they bring in annually for their fire fees. Discussions that we had in talking about the fire fees, listening to Chief Tacey for several months talk about the issues that he's having with his fire department and calls, and he just reiterated that at this meeting. In order to get Chief Tacey and his department the additional firefighters they need without already cutting into our budget, the one option would be to look at increasing the fire fee overall. Mr. McCauley did present you all a proposed ordinance that has no definitive time to be considered. We're just considering this as part of the legislative process. But in listening to council members, having discussions, and listening to comments, it seemed like it was the attitude of council to actually look at square footage. Initially, talks that we talked about was just having a flat fee, like we have right now for our residentials. That wasn't received quite well because some individuals that have a flat fee may have less square footage than maybe a larger home. So to not really complicate things, but create a tier system within residential that would accommodate for those folks making a certain square footage in their home and those above a square footage, we decided to break that up into 2 tiers. The first tier for residential classification would be 2,500 square feet or less. Any home 2,500 square feet or less would be charged $30 a month, which is double what they're paying now.
$3.
$3 a month. What did I say?
30.
No, it's not 30. Make sure that's corrected somewhere. It's $3, so it would be double from $1.50. The difference is when you have a residential home that is over 2,501 square feet, instead of paying $1.50, they would actually pay $5 a month. So that is a pretty big difference from a monetary standpoint when you go from $1.50 to $5.
It's $8.33 of Bridgeport, is that correct?
I believe so. Yeah, it's $8.33. Yes. That cuts the residential. So you have 2-tier system for residential, 2,500 or less, 2,500 or more, 2,501 or more. The interesting thing comes down to commercial. Recognizing the fact that our formula does encounter and does consider gross income and the fact that it doesn't really take into account businesses that are making over $200,000 a year, which a lot of businesses in Buckhannon are doing, keeping in mind the mindset of having a square footage, we devised creating a tier system. We had 4 tiers within that. We went from commercial, anything under 2,500 square feet would pay $12.50 a month. Anything between 2,501 square feet and 7,500 square feet would make $25 a month. Anything 7,501 square feet to 22,500 square feet would be $50 a month. And then the final tier, 4th tier, would be anything over 22,501 square feet would be charged at a rate of 4.5 cents per square foot, with the amount not to exceed $1,500 a month. Now, since this was revealed to council, and again, raw legislation, I've had calls as recently as Friday afternoon from a business owner who had an issue with our 3rd and 4th tier, essentially. This person had a unique situation, had a business that is about 28,000 square feet. If you apply the 28,000 square feet model to this business, that individual would be paying roughly $1,200 a month. If they had 5,000 less square feet, they'd be paying $50 a month. That's a considerable gap, and that's something I will admit we need to change. And maybe we look at changing that and adding a 4th tier to go 22,501 to 35,000 square feet. There's not too many businesses in town that go over that 35,000 square feet mark. So that's something that's part of this legislative process that I would recommend that we look at considering for a change. Again, we wanted to put something out there that would give you something to talk about, that could give you something that you could go out to your neighbors your constituents, your businesses in town, and discuss with them. And that's the whole point. We're getting that feedback back, and this is something that will be addressed. Because that's a pretty big difference. You know, that's over $1,100 more a month for that business. And we certainly don't want to do that to our business owners. So we want to look at that square footage model. But that's where we're looking at. I'll be honest with you, on one side, you know, you'll have an individual or a business that may be paying more in square footage. Believe it or not, there are a few businesses in town that are under 2,500 square feet, very few, that are under 2,500 square feet, that actually, when you compare it to the gross model, actually pay a little bit less than what the model's designed for. And there's few and far between with those, just like there's a few on the opposite side of that that are disadvantaged by the establishment of the fourth tier as it currently stands at 4.5 cents per square feet. Also, there's another flip side to this when we're talking about being cognizant of the burden we're putting on our residents, also the burden we're putting on commercial and industrial, as also the burden that we're putting on our administrative staff to actually implement and collect these fees. And Amby Jenkins and I were talking in the office since we've created this draft ordinance, and there are a few things that we would like for you all to also consider as we shape and mold this ordinance and get it potentially up for first reading and consideration. Again, I will tell you that the current fees and what we're looking at should, well, they will double the amount of revenue that we're bringing in now. You've heard Chief Tacey's discussion about adding additional firefighters. This fee, as it stands right now, even with some changes, will still certainly double the cost of the fees collected, and then some for the fire department, to not only bring us up to the standard of the services that are provided, but enable the fire department to also realize the additional employees and personnel.
Mike, I want to emphasize that the whole point of a fire fee increase is not to hire more firemen. That is a small portion of it, but we've got millions of dollars worth of equipment that we need to maintain. Every time you drive by a fire scene and see a firefighter standing there with his turnout gear on, and an air pack that's $10,000, you see, you just 10, 20, 30, 40. Because it costs roughly $10,000 to equip a firefighter with all his protective gear.
You know, can I make a comment?
Go ahead, Dave.
We have hose meat air packs, air cylinders. Air cylinders are good for 15 years. After 15 years, whether it'll pass a test or not, it becomes a fancy paperweight. So it's just not about hiring. It's about being able to get some extra money to replace some of our aging equipment, buy that new ladder truck, and maintain some.
You know, Mitch, one of the real issues I have, it's my opinion, is that we're looking at city only. And I think the county needs to step up to the plate with us to look at what their fee structure is. And, you know, if you're required to go out to Tennerton and respond to a vehicular crash or fire, and, you know, we're going to increase our fees, but at the same time, they're not going to do anything, I just think that's wrong.
Well,
I mean, it's, and I'm not advocating that we keep our fees the same. I think we need to increase our fees. But the county needs to step up to the plate also and indicate to their residents within the county area that, hey, you know, the volunteers need more money, and so does Buckhannon Fire Department, period. And, I mean, I believe in metro government. I think that's going to happen to us at some point in time.
We know.
But,
Dave,
I hope so too.
yeah.
but here's the problem, and you're absolutely right, David. And I sat on the county fire board, and I understand their concerns as well. And it's an overall environmental, and we've discussed this now for going on 3 months. There's a volunteerism issue, there's an age issue, there's a lot of issues that have to do revolving around the civil service in particular. Mr. Doss, you had something in particular you wanted to add there?
I'd alluded to the administrative concerns that we had, and there's some items, there's particularly 3 items that we would like for you all to also consider as we're working our way through cleaning up or modifying this ordinance. And I'm going to yield to Amby, because I know she's passionate about this, and so you all can listen to that, and if you like what you're hearing or something, it's something also that Mr. McCauley will need to include, again, as we clarify or we clean up or we shape this this potentially proposed fire ordinance. So Amy's usually shy, I'll put her on the spot a little bit to discuss a couple.
Well, like he said, administratively, we're going to have to be able to do this, and this is a huge change compared to what we've done before. So first of all, you're talking about measuring houses. One of the things I talked to Bridgeport about was possibly implementing the higher rate on the houses and then giving the residents at the first bill 30 days to come in and appeal that decision. Because we can't go out and measure every house. That's going to take months, and you'll not have this implemented by July 1st. It won't happen. So we need some wording in there about allowing that person to appeal that first bill or the bill after they receive it 30 days. They have a chance to come in and appeal it, and then we can send somebody out and check the square footage of that. The other thing, I need some wording in there, legislative wording. I've shared this with Dave. In the event that I can't collect this fee through a normal process, because we do have about 150 houses that are vacant, those people are going to be paying a fire fee. The owners of those houses are going to be paying a fire fee. Sometimes that's hard to collect when you don't have any leverage. I can turn into a collection agency, but they can continue to ignore me. So I need to be able to, after my last resort, put a lien on those properties.
Home rule allow that, right, Dan?
The state code will allow me to do it, but it has to be built into the ordinance that I can put a lien on the property. And then the other thing was just some wording in here about the owners of the residential dwellings. Sometimes we have renters coming in, and I would surmise that if someone's renting a house, they're going to be paying the fire fee at the time rather than the owner of the building. So there's just some wording there. I think I've got it all in there. That we need to add to that. I think Dave knows about it, I've shared that with him.
There's a separate issue too, that some cities, in addition to the owner's interest, I own a house, but I rent it. That renter has personal property that we are also protecting, and again, I'm not trying to overreach here, but there are municipalities that would also assess a fee to tenants as well. Michael's going to get the electronic version of the Bridgeport ordinance to me, which is far more massive than the short one that you saw at the last meeting. So I really need to, if that's the direction you're going, I need to really acclimate myself much better with what Bridgeport does in a lot of those respects.
And just excuse me for a minute while I just want to throw my opinion out there real quick for you. And here's the thing that I've been fighting with for the 6 months that I've been now sitting in office. And that is the fact that we've been holding off on increasing a lot of fees for many, many years. In this case, a fee that's been decades and not being adjusted to fulfill what we need it to fulfill within what it's designed to do, particularly for our fire department. And I'm going to keep stressing this with when we're talking about water rate increases, the sewer rate increases, or any of the increases we're looking at. Politically, it's easy to put them off to the next year, to the next politician, to the next group of people. But ultimately, it comes right down to the fact that somebody's going to have to make the decision. And I've decided that since I've only got a limited time, I'm going to go ahead and throw it all out there for the community to take a look at and decide how we're going to do this and how do we best implement, protect our citizens and protect our firefighters and our other departments as well. I just wanted to get that out there for the record. Mary, you had something to say?
I do. Michael, I had difficulty hearing when you gave the tiers. I know. Would you please repeat that so I can?
Yeah, Mary, it should be. I don't know. You should have a copy of it in your ordinance, but I'll reiterate it. The residential.
Well, no, the changed one.
Oh, there is no change. The one that probably needs to be worked on a little bit would probably be some consideration. There are 4 tiers, with the 4th tier being a certain square footage or over would then be feed at 4.5 cents per square foot.
Right.
Possibly.
Which would be paragraph number 4 on page 4.
Probably. Yeah, it's 22,501.
Okay, so.
Yeah, and maybe looking at maybe enhancing that 3rd tier, which starts at 22,501. Maybe enhancing that up to 35,000. square footage, and I wanna go back and take a look at that, because I think that might be where there's a lot of inequities when you transition between that third and fourth tier.
Between the third and fourth, that's
Right,
correct.
correct. And I wanna go back and take a look at that and come up with something that is a little bit more equitable,
Well,
because that is a pretty significant
conceptually, you want
jump.
to do what you did with the $1 million exemption, is that you want to protect that one tier that would, I mean, there's one group that's going to get a huge increase if they exceed 22.5. But there's only 3 or 4 operations in
the whole
city
city, so.
that.
Yeah, but those ones that get into that fourth tier are multi-million-dollar companies.
100,000 square feet or 1 million square feet.
Yeah. I mean, without giving things away.
They already gave it away.
Well,
Can you use the assessor's books for square footage?
I have to request, I've already requested it from the state tax department. And the way I understand it, they're going to send me information, but it's a footprint of the building. It won't tell me how many stories are in that building. I mean, I know
Just
some
like
of them
basements
are,
and
you
stuff
know,
like that.
it doesn't show me basements.
Well,
It can be simplified really easy if you want to.
It could, but it's gonna take a lot of administration.
well, I mean, it's
Not necessarily.
we're simplifying it, I mean, by trying to lump all of these in categories. And I don't, heck, maybe we end up doing away with the formula computation. I don't know. And that's the whole point of this, is to sit there and discuss that. There's things administratively that Ambi brought to my attention, because, you know, she works in it daily with the office staff. We just wanted to bring that up to you, and I know you all have been receiving calls, and I
Yes.
fielded some of those, and, you know, we want to make sure that we're listening to folks out there as we should.
And then I got all creative and did this nothing thing that CJ was kind enough to point out to me that didn't fix the problem, that created a bigger problem, so.
Thank you. Go ahead, Michael. You got anything else?
So what I'd like to do is just take what Ambi's presented to you today, go back and look at the commercial tiers.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there's several questions. One, does the residential work? You know, there's those things too. And then get that back and update Macaulay and start to reshape this. If council wants to proceed with the fire fee, I mean, I don't know.
That's the ultimate question here now that I guess we really need to discuss.
Oh, yeah, the
Is
people-
council ready to move on with this proposal?
With this,
You've got a chance to review it. We've given it to you for
Yeah.
over a month, 2 months to look at and review. We're given the first opportunity for the community to respond or say anything to it. We'll be discussing it again in our town hall meeting. But does this council feel that we need to proceed with looking at the fire fee as it has been proposed, with changes that we want to do? Or do we just want to go ahead and roll it over another year and wait for the next?
no, I think we need,
I
sorry.
think you can do part, it's not an either or. I mean, if you're worried about the square footage for residential, just, you know, you're gonna double it at $2,500 and less, 2,500 square feet and less. Just double it for everybody for now, and then you can take a look at, is it really worth the administrative effort to do over 2,500 square feet? I mean.
Well, the reason that we did that is, that was initially what I had proposed.
Right.
And there were discussions
So we
by
could- we
council
could-
about versus 2,500, or, you know, why should I pay X when someone else is paying the same and someone else has double?
We can address that in the future, just say, okay, we're gonna double the residential from $1.50 to $3. And at some point in time, if it's not an administrative nightmare, we may wanna consider square footage above 2,500 or 3,000 or what have you. But I wouldn't try to get too complicated on this.
No.
And then on the commercial properties, I think there is a huge difference with you have 4 or 5 operations in the city that are, you know, humongous square footage wise, and they should have a little bit more burden, obviously, than those that are much less. And it doesn't have to be that complicated, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, then what I'm hearing then is the council wants to continue with the discussion at all. What I would like to do then is open it up to the floor, to our audience that obviously waited here long enough to talk about fire fees and the need for a fire department. So, anybody want to start us off from, Mr. Rylance?
I'll go again, since I already got part of it out earlier.
Certainly, please.
But I empathize with both department heads and the gentleman who cut his paycheck up, because I am fully engaged in dealing with these adaptive efficiencies that everyone has to deal with. And there's only so much money. You know, and whether it's my business or the community or whatnot, we all have to have some philosophical foundation, a set of goals, a vision for us to operate, to make decisions within a framework. So I took the comprehensive plan, which I believe you just adopted, and went to the economic development section. And the overreaching goal, if I could read this, is by 2015, which is now put forward to 2020, the Buckhannon Upshur community has sustained a vibrant, healthy, diverse economic climate that includes a strong downtown and offers stable employment opportunities for its residents and enjoy a good quality of life. Now, the top 3 goals under here listed. The first one, the city has hired a downtown Main Street coordinator to lead retail business development, i.e. new retail shopping and sit-down restaurants, planning and execution for the downtown area, and to serve as a small business advocate, facilitator to assist in the opening, retention, expansion of small businesses within the city. And I think for the most part, the Economic Development Authority and the CVB, which are help funded by the city, are accomplishing some of these goals. Number 2, Buckhannon Upshur has established a well-earned reputation as an entrepreneur-friendly community through a program called Create Buckhannon Upshur. And Create has been operating since 2008. We have done a lot of things. There's a lot of things we're working on. I think we've met that goal for the most part. Goal 3, develop future retail commercial areas in a high-quality manner to complement Buckhannon's small-town atmosphere. And I think the developers of Northridge have accomplished that through a thoughtful design that complements what's going on downtown, an additional restaurant dining option. So these things are all been happening so far, mainly from outside of this council. But you are the interpretive body, the one that has to adjust the behaviors and guide this whole process to accomplish this vision. And that's what you're talking about doing. But we need to do the things today that will make ourselves successful 5 to 10 years from now. You have to be very cognizant and careful about establishing things today that could change what we've accomplished up to this point. And I already went over the additional taxes that it costs me to operate and any other entity within the city limits, and it's significant. Now, we own, my wife and I, 5 buildings downtown, and I have half interest in 5 additional buildings. Like I said, I've chosen to invest my money and earn my living in downtowns. But, you know, I wonder if, since the only legislative mechanism for municipalities and county governments to raise taxation is through real estate ownership, you know, maybe I should have stocks and bonds. I don't know. I'm sure there's reasons that you don't do that also. So when I took this proposed structure and applied it to the buildings that I currently own, it comes to about $7,900 a year. That is a new cost, because if my understanding is right, this fire fee is a new fee. It's not going to replace the police fire fee on my water bill or on my tenant's water bill, correct? No. So this is a new additional cost that we would incur, and it's a reoccurring cost. It doesn't go away, and I doubt it would get smaller over time. So currently, my tenants pay $30 a month on their water bill, and I have lease contracts with these people, so they're going to get, maybe not get a reduction, but I can't pass this on to them until the lease expires, and I can establish a new fee and pass it on. Just like Suddenlink's passing on the B&O tax to its end user. You know, I also contemplated, you know, we have a point of sale system in the restaurant, and I thought, you know, I could just do some programming and you come in and get a hamburger, so instead of me charging $10 and absorbing all these costs, I can charge you $7.99 and say, okay, police fire fee is 18 cents, B&O tax 14 cents, and all these other costs associated, and ring it all out there so you could see what it is that I'm paying. So and I talked earlier about economic evolution, you know, the long-term response to the business environment. And you don't want to follow in the in the paths of other communities, named Clarksburg or Fairmont, where sometimes over 60% of their gross revenue is used in civil service support, because all the businesses have left. Now they have to have additional fees where it becomes, if you've been to some of these towns, you know what they look like. And I don't think that's where we want to go. Now, when I studied this and I looked at it and I looked at the structure of the fees, I almost wonder if it's a political decision to subsidize the residents by going after the businesses. Since the highest business cost is 37 times per square foot cost than it is for residents. Now maybe because there's 5,700 residents and there's 150 business owners, that's 150 votes, and a lot of the business owners don't live in city, so they don't have a voice at all, so let's tax them. But once again, just be careful about what you do, because this is perpetual and it goes on and on. I'm in support of the firemen and the police and what their jobs are tough, but if this is equitable and they serve as many issues with residents as not, why would I want to pay 37 times what a residence would pay? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. So if you want to be equitable, like Mr. Thomas says, fair level playing field, then I guess what would happen if you said each resident's going to pay $27 a month, I know the answer to that. You would have to have a bigger place to have a meeting, and you would never get reelected, and we'd have ongoing issues. But what is the long-term solution? And I think David's idea of getting people, technical change is a top-down mentality. Adaptive change is the people that have to come together and solve the problems for themselves. And if you can create an environment where everyone comes together and works together in the community's best interests and comes up with something that makes sense, then how much better off are we going to be? I don't particularly like the idea of plagiarizing other communities' structures and whatnot. Why can't we work together and develop something that's unique unto ourselves, instead of applying a solution someone else applied to their problem or issue? Now, I'm not, afraid of copying things, I was taught at an early age, you see a good idea, you take it, change it a little bit and make it yours. I do it in the restaurant all the time, menu items. But that's basically, the issue that I'm trying to convey to you is, try to be a little more thoughtful about what you're trying to accomplish and what you're doing and how it affects people like myself and others who are investing and trying to create something, and this comes along and we say, what the hell are we doing this for? This is not it. I want to support them, but I don't personally want to pay for subsidizing someone else's services. So.
Thank you, Mr. Rollins. That was well said and bringing up some really good points. What I hope we are accomplishing tonight after 3 hours is that we are actually trying to encompass some of the thoughts that you're saying, and that's bringing together the community and involving everybody that has a part in this process together to discuss the things you're talking about. I think this council in particular has made its number one goal, or one of its number one goals, to make sure that we listen to all of the citizens within the city and without surrounding the city. Because again, I'm one of those that believe in Upshur County and Buckhannon as a whole, not as two different entities. I don't believe, though, I will disagree with you on one point, though. I think right now the residents subsidize the fire fees. And we're not looking to have the commercial company or businesses subsidized. What we're trying to do is find the happy medium. Right now it is the residents, and I will repeat that, it are subsidizing the fire fee. Because if you're talking about $150 a year or a month at Walmart for fire fees and police fees, then obviously there is a really disproportionate valuation here.
Well, don't let the metronome of politics swing to the other side. Can't we shoot down the middle? I'm all for
That's politics. And thank you. We appreciate your input. Of course, we always listen to what you have to say. You always bring up good insights.
Well, we all have strong opinions on these subjects, and I think that's another reason for us to, again, I'd advocate that, you know, this is a start for a good conversation, and I think we need further conversations. I got a whole lot of concerns about the police fee also, which we'll talk about in the future.
Yeah.
But I think this can be, we can simplify it, we don't have to make it that complicated, and we can start the process now, in the next 30 to 60 days, have it implemented July 1st or January 1 of next year. But the square footage thing, as Amby says, that could be a nightmare administratively. And we also want to protect the small and middle-sized business person versus a real giant.
And I agree, and I'll be really quick, I promise. Michael, did you understand, CJ, some of the changes that Michael recommended?
Yes.
Okay. And then also, David, we already have this ordinance in a rough draft. We've made changes to it tonight. Okay? So is this still not a first reading?
No.
Okay, all right. I needed to make sure. Around the rookie.
I don't see us having a first reading until after we have a town hall meeting.
Okay, all right.
We could have we could have a first reading at the next meeting and then have a town hall meeting, but I would not suggest a second reading at that.
And one other thing that we didn't consider, and which I wanted to include somehow or another, if there is this increase in the fire fee, if there is a business that it's going to really be detrimental to or whatever, could we delay it maybe for a year, let them plan ahead or whatever, you know, to incorporate in their own budget somehow or another?
We're still in the very beginning stages, I think.
I don't see this happening within 6 months.
And I think if we're gonna have a town hall meeting, we ought to have the B&O tax, the fire, and the police fee all discussed in the town hall.
I think so.
One thing, CJ, that you said there was, you thought this might be a supplement to what we're already charging, but we are planning to do away with the fees that is currently being charging and not adding to that,
Right.
but exchanging this for that.
Because right now we pay $1.50, correct?
Yeah.
And so that won't,
I think on a commercial water bill, it's $30 for police and fire. Is that-
Police and fire, it's 30 a month, yes.
Right.
That's a maximum.
So
That would
this
replace
fire
that-
fee
that would
is a
replace
separate
that. Replace that.
entity.
It would replace that entirely.
It'd be,
Well,
and
it
how
would
are the
replace the
police gonna
15
get funded
It
if
would
this is
replace the
called a fire?
$15.
We're not talking about police
Yeah, the
right now.
police fees.
Well, that's what I'm scared of.
What is the sprinkler fee?
On this ordinance?
Right, well, not.
No, on our bill.
Sprinkler?
Yeah.
on the water bill, you mean?
No, it's called a
Fire sprinkler.
fire sprinkler, $20.
I have no idea.
That's on the Hope Microtel Inn and Suites.
I have no idea what that is.
And you know, that's another thing. I hope you really reconsider this tiering of that jump, because
That's
right
on the
now we're
water
paying
tier.
$30 a month.
On the
It would go up to almost $1,300 a month.
Right.
So we
understand.
really need to consider
We
something,
understand.
doing something different.
And we'd love to be that multi-million-dollar business that Mike says it's over 22,501 square feet.
I missed your comment, I didn't hear it.
I'm just saying that right now we're paying $30 fire fee, and if we do with the tier system like it is, you want to do, it's going to be like $1,300.
Yeah, we're not gonna do that.
Well, did you find out what the sprinkler fee was?
The sprinkler fee, I think he's talking
on the
about
water
it's on the water tariff. That's for the water, that's given to the water department.
Is it, okay, that's,
Yeah,
okay.
that's for your service for your water that goes through your sprinkler in case you need it.
Hopefully we never need it.
Well, if you do, we'll increase your fire fee.
But I have a question. On regards to Northridge, we have, if you combine all those buildings together and they're all attached, we got a total of 29,000 square feet out there. And once we get those buildings full, is each entity going to be charged for the square footage they're renting? Or are we going to get charged for the whole 29,000 square feet?
You're the owner of the whole Northridge, right?
Yes, sir.
Then if that's your answer there. You're the one that's paying.
So we'd have to pass that on.
Basically, it's passing on.
But if they modify the scale, it won't be that that
It won't be as.
high
And you're-
.045 rate.
And you're a question that one of the interesting buildings that we had a question on what your square footage was for the entire complex. Is that Buffalo Wild Wings, everything? No, it's actually a good thing. It's good.
Around 29,000.
Okay,
All of it, everything attached.
gotcha. That's a good thing, I know that.
See, how much is your CJ with the tree on top?
Oh, that's the restaurant, that's 8,800 square feet. My issue is with, on the tax maps, or on the deeds, whatever, the next 3 buildings where Murphy's were are collectively about 29,000 also. Now, someone else owns the 3rd floor of the whole
Right.
building, and I mean, I could sell the one to my kids or something else if that's in a way to legally avoid the higher tier. But, you know, one other thought, I mean, they brought up sprinklers, but if you're talking about mitigating risk and someone invests in sprinklers, is there a credit, is there an allowance for that on a fire fee?
And that's an intriguing thing that actually Rich Clemens, our building zoning inspector, had discussed, and that's a possibility too, that you know, for some of these buildings that are newer or have invested in fire suppression, you know, should they be given a credit of some kind? If so, what would that amount be? If they can, you know, provide evidence or proof that they have that, then, you know, it's certainly going to be much more an assistance to the fire guys if they are going into something that has, you know, is up to code or has good fire suppression in it. So that's a possibility.
Did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to, one thing to think about too with the fire fees and the increase. The fire fees and insurance rating, the fee is kind of going to be a double-edged sword. You can pay a certain amount for the fire fee, and I'm going to build on what Ron said. If we maintain, if this fire fee is implemented, it's going to help us maintain our rating. If we get more personnel, right now we're struggling with personnel to meet our ISO requirements, and our equipment, the age of our equipment is another issue. If we maintain proper staffing and proper equipment, we can keep our insurance rates where they're at or possibly go lower. If we continue to see a decreased amount of guys that we can put on a scene or not be able to replace our aging equipment, we could move a class on a scale from good to bad. We could go more towards the worst side, and that could equate to possible 30. And I'm going to throw these numbers out, between the 20 to 30% increase on your insurance premium.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah,
That's what I was going to ask.
It certainly does. It certainly does.
If you go from class 5 to a class
I know,
7,
and
it's a 30%.
And CJ, not to be smart aleck, but you could pay a fire fee and give it to your local fire department, or the fire department can go away and you can pay that fee to your insurance company.
Hey, I'm all for, you know, supporting your efforts.
Yeah, I understand that,
I
but
don't want to put myself under or in a situation that I can't pass on somehow in costs.
but
I'm no different than you as a department head, as a business owner and manager, trying to manage costs.
the funny thing about the fire fee, it's going to be there in some form or fashion of another, either what you paid for fire protection, to have good fire protection, or what you paid on an increased
What if, when you provide services outside of city limits, is there a legislative mechanism to bill them when those specific services are supplied, or?
Are you talking about first
Can I
area
answer that?
assistance? What?
You mean if we go outside the city, do we bill people? They pay a county fire fee, which is supplements our volunteer fire department, which helps us inside the city, so it's like a mutual thing. We're one department. We are sanctioned
Does
as
that
one
meet your costs when you evaluate that on an annual basis? Does the fire fee collected by the county and the 1/7 portion that you receive balance out or mitigate the cost that you?
Let me give you the math. We have 65% of the population and 95% of commerce in our first due, and we get 1/7. You do the math.
So the answer is no.
You guys
So is there another mechanism to?
No, not yet, really. Now, we did take a look at the first due area, which is something that, you know, we were looking at copying, due to the fact that there were some volunteer fire department issues at the time through the county, which I think a lot of people are aware through the press, that there's been some concerns with. We thought about that. We are in no way looking to progress that because that brings up a whole another can of worms. But I think we have done pretty much our due diligence on researching, not just the Bridgeport plan, but we looked at Elkins, we looked at Weston's. They're all basically based upon the same sort of a structure. We were trying to make it a little unique here and begin with the very foundation of how we're going to address this fire fee structure and how do we supplement and how do we take care of our department and the needs that they have. This is going to be a discussion that we're going to be carrying on for quite some time. I do certainly appreciate the insights and thoughts of our audience on that. You guys make all reasonable, very articulate arguments to it, and something that we're going to have to take into consideration eventually, and we're going to have to listen to the citizens. Mr. Bax, I think you had something to say.
Yeah, CJ, just to echo your thoughts, I do agree with local solutions to local problems. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But I want everybody to understand one thing too, we're way behind the 8 ball. Nobody has proverbially put this off, but the problem has just worsened quicker than we can keep up with it. And we have went from calling departments inside of our own county without depleting it to calling Weston and Elkins. And I don't know where we go next to make up the manpower, make up the equipment difference without raising fees and stuff. And I do feel for you because I know what it'd be like if it was my personal budget and it was that much of an increase. But somewhere it's got to come from. I mean, I'm not saying that's somebody's you, but we've got to keep that in mind. We've got to keep the end in mind. We've got to begin with the end in mind whenever we're doing that.
I have one question. What is ISO again, so I can make that?
Insurance Service Organization. They grade your fire.
Insurance Service Office, they provide the rating system that grades your fire department. One being very, very rare, one being the best it can be, 10 being nothing.
Mitch, that's what I was gonna ask you. Because I know the insurance, a lot of folks don't realize that if you're within a certain distance, your insurance rates are considerably low.
Yeah.
But we're, like, say, since I'm in Templeton, am I still within to where the insurance?
Yes, you're borderline, yeah.
Okay, because that would be interesting to, I mean, I'm sure the public does not know, 'cause I didn't know until today. I was just talking to my insurance agent. He said it makes a difference on how close you are to the fire department.
And a fire hydrant.
It's a complicated.
And a fire hydrant, right?
Right.
Sam, you'll notice a lot of the county residents are aware of that because the closer they are to a volunteer fire department or a hydrant, you can really see the difference on the bill.
Right, so your $25 a month is nothing compared to maybe your $300.
15 years ago when it started, it was. There was nothing set up in there just like the cities. There's no tier every 5 years it goes up. How many times has your water bill went up in 35 years? Several times? Yeah, 3-4 times. Your fire fee in the city hasn't went up at all.
And I think we are going to do our best to hear what you're saying on, and we're going to try to find the middle balance. We're going to try to find the compromise.
That's the thing, I mean.
Where do we find it? We're starting off giving you some basic numbers that we're shooting for, but they can be adjusted. There could be instances with circumstances on certain buildings. I see us doing the same thing that the county does as far as the appeal process. If the county sends you the bill, you disagree with it, you come in, fill out a form, you come before the board, which either can agree with you or change it. They can go ahead and dismiss your charge. So that's the way I see it going as we get to that process, that point of the process.
I think that needs further discussion.
Wouldn't it be
I'm sure it
prudent
will.
to come up with how much money do you want to raise?
Yeah,
I mean, and
Well,
then
we know, we got
apply
numbers.
the formula and try to say, okay, if we need $400,000, we know, get some idea about what this is going to be, and then apply the equation to that and tweak it to meet what you're going, to slap it out there and not know, frankly, and then, you know, I'm not that pessimistic, but I think if you brought in 500,000, I don't think we're getting 100 back. But
well, the truth of the matter is we already have a number. We're not willing to give out that number at this point. Chief alluded to it a little bit when he was talking about salaries and equipment. You got a general idea of the numbers we're looking at. You got a general idea of the numbers we're looking at with this ordinance. Is that a specific number? No. Are we willing to discuss what the very essential budget lines that we need to have to fulfill that? That will come along as we continue on with this discussion. That'll be the next phase. We're just trying to get it out there at this point.
And I don't think we have a number. I don't agree.
We do have a number.
I don't agree with that. That number is still.
You don't know the number.
We have the number.
I don't know if we have an idea of a number. We don't
You
have.
got an idea? We've not made a decision on the number.
Because there's some of us that may not agree with what we're doing.
All right, I think we're degrading here.
Yes, we are. Let's go home.
But, hey, excuse me, pardon me, order. I'm getting tired, I think everybody's getting tired. I want to make sure though that we have everybody from the audience discussing what they want to have. Are there any other questions or comments that you would like to have in pertaining to the fire fee ordinance, or fire fee proposed ordinance as you have heard it tonight? Any other comments, questions, or speak now or hold your peace until the next time we have the discussion? As always, Michael, myself, any of the council members, I hope you will continue to do research on this so that as the community comes to you, you're able to answer in a very logical and knowledgeable manner. Having said that, if we don't have any other questions pertaining to that part, we will continue our fire fee discussion. It's a very important one we have to do. What I will do now is go to our comments and announcements, and I'm going to back it up and go to Mr. Thomas first tonight.
Well, I just appreciate everybody coming out, and I hope we continue the thoughtful discussion on this, and we don't try to make it complicated. It can be fairly simplified, and I'm looking forward to the discussions about the police fee also.
Thank you. One thing before we do that, we need to, well, no, I'll wait. Mrs. Kapari.
I just want to say that I want to think about everything because it's going to affect everybody. People that's in businesses, residents, and speaking about being fair to businesses and residents with the fire fees.
Thank you, Pam. Very good. Mr. Pugh?
Yeah, I'd like to thank everybody that came tonight. This is really great that y'all can come and sit and we can have a discourse here whether we believe what we're doing is right or wrong, or you the same. But the four gentlemen right here, I would like to say thank you for having your businesses in Buckhannon. And if it worked for people like you, then we would be having the same result as the city of Weston or the city of Grafton or some places that have gone completely away once the business from downtown left. I appreciate what you're doing for us, and I don't want to run anybody out of business, and I think we're going to work this fire fee out there to be equitable to everybody.
Go ahead. Mary? Thank you, Ron. Mary?
Thank you, Ron. I just want to say is, you know, we as council have a responsibility to make the decisions that are best for our citizens and our residents of this community, our business owners of this community. And I believe we've probably moved forward tonight leaps and bounds of looking at long and short range goals and just open discussions between our business owners, and I thank you for coming. And I have had several calls and even from citizens, well, why are you going to raise taxes? We're not raising taxes, you know, we're not doing anything but discussing it now. But I like the open dialogue, and Chief Gregory and Chief Tacey and all you other guys back there at the fire department, appreciate you coming, just like all of our city employees coming tonight, because they're concerned and they have a right to be. And some of those people are citizens too. So I think it's a wonderful thing that
Y'all got the green cards.
that we've done tonight.
Thank you, Mary. We appreciate that. Robin?
We have a lot to think about. We have a big responsibility to everybody. So I think I'm tired. I'm ready to go home. How about you guys?
Looks like jumping right into the fire.
Hey, Matt, I need to see it.
I want to thank everyone that came tonight, the employees, of course, our business leaders, our citizens, our fire department, and our departments. Before we leave, we have to make a decision here. On February 19th, I believe it is our second meeting in February. To make it easier for ourselves, I would like to ask council to consider that council meeting as our town hall meeting. It'll be a unique way of handling the council meeting. It would be a town hall, not a special meeting like we have now. We would have our normal council meeting, the same sort of an agenda, but just a bridge so it's a lot shorter, and do our town hall meeting.
Not to interrupt you, sir, you may want to consider moving that.
I would think so too, yeah.
The 19th?
If you're going to have a town hall meeting,
Meeting place.
I would try to.
Yes, oh, yeah, not here, no.
No, we're gonna have it at the fire hall.
Well, let me get a date first.
Second floor CJ's.
A consensus, do we want to have the combine the city council and the town hall meeting into one?
On the 13th of February.
19th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
19th, yeah.
Couldn't hear it. Okay, it's 19th of February.
That's fine.
Okay, we can do that.
I agree.
And then the question would be, where would you want to have it?
At the new convention center.
Do you think you're gonna get a lot of people to go out there?
No.
No.
What do you think, where do we have here to have it?
You have American Legion Hall, it's bigger than this place. We'll sit 75.
at Stockard before.
We've done it in Stockton before.
Restaurant
We need
center?
you.
Can we do it at American Legion? We'll hold 75.
Go Chapel Hill or First
You're gonna have
Methodist
75,
Church.
you're gonna have 150 people there.
You might want to think about the structure of the meeting. If you have 150 people and you're all going to try to solve something, maybe you break out into some breakout groups and there's a facilitator with each group and then they have their own conversation, then come back and present the findings to the group at large. It's going to give everyone a better opportunity to find their voice and to share what they think because you have now 6 or 8 groups talking instead of one. There's a lot less, eight times the opportunity to express your thoughts and ideas.
Well, that makes perfect sense from a facilitator point of view. The point of the matter is we cannot hold our meetings as a city council meeting that way. We have to have a very structured agenda to do so. We cannot just break up into different
As a
groups to do that. But if you don't want to, then what we could do is have our regular city council meeting and then come up with another day where we could have that sort of a town hall meeting. There are many ways to hold town hall meetings. If you watch C-SPAN, you watch any of the other political shows, you can understand how town hall meetings can be done, and they can be done in many different ways.
Let's figure that out and then we'll make the decision next Thursday.
All right, then keep in mind on the 19th then for council and town hall at the same time. If not, we don't have to do that. That's all I have. I have no other comments except to say thank you and that we are adjourned.